Happy New Year. Welcome in. This is Three Man Front on a Thursday. Pat, Landrum, Conrad, Molly with you until 2 o'clock today. Hope everyone, start of your new year has definitely not been one that we would want to start the show talking about, but the horrible terror in New Orleans on early yesterday morning, Landrum, that has definitely caused a lot of us to not think about football and to think about the people down in New Orleans.
You're absolutely right, and first and foremost, thoughts and prayers to everyone who's been affected, and just a horrible, senseless, once again, loss of human life. And it is a reminder, and it reminded me of raids, get-togethers. You want to talk about concerts, football games, whatever. We're still reminded that we have to be vigilant, and these kinds of evil are still out. But yeah, you're right, Pat. This is not the way that we wanted to start 2025 for sure.
Last night's college football playoff quarterfinal game at the Sugar Bowl was postponed. You can hear that game this afternoon at 3 o'clock. The decision was made in coordination with federal, state, and local authorities, as well as the College Football Playoff, ESPN, the Southeastern Conference, the University of Georgia, and the University of Notre Dame, and the Caesars Superdome, because needless to say, they wanted to make sure that that venue was locked down for today's game. So with law enforcement assets that would typically be allocated to an event of this status, they wanted to make sure that not only the crime scene, that was Bourbon Street, was taken care of, but also the thousands of people that will be in the Superdome. This is the way it sounded late yesterday afternoon at a press conference. This is Sugar Bowl CEO Jeff Hundley with the announcement.
We were scheduled this evening to have a CFP quarterfinal played in the Superdome at 7:45. We have been in consultation with ESPN, with the College Football Playoff, with the Southeastern Conference, with the University of Georgia, with Notre Dame, all parties, and all agree that it's in the best interest of everybody and public safety that we postpone the game for 24 hours. Work is fast about to set up an environment for tomorrow night. There'll be more details on that. But for now, that's the plan, that we're going to move forward and play the game. And again, we reiterate our everyone up here for the work, important fun and games world with what we do, but we certainly recognize the importance of this, and we're going to support it 100%.
So Notre Dame, Landrum, they stayed in their team hotel in New Orleans all day long yesterday. They had a team meeting at 3 o'clock. Then they broke into offensive and defensive team meetings, a special teams meeting, and finally conducted a team run all at the hotel. So they did not leave the property, unlike the University of Georgia. So Kirby Smart yesterday, according to Georgia's On3 site, the Bulldogs went to the Saints practice facility, and they had a walkthrough practice. So they actually got away from the hotel. For most of our audience, you know New Orleans pretty well, and you know the layout of New Orleans. And if you're ever down there for a big game, whether it's a Sugar Bowl game, a national championship game, whatever the case may be, most of the team hotels are there on Canal Street. Matter of fact, every time that I've gone to cover an Alabama game, Alabama's always stayed at the Marriott, which is right down the street from Harrah's, which is right there on Canal Street. So not really sure where Georgia or Notre Dame is currently staying, but Notre Dame decided, Landrum, to stay at their hotel, but Kirby had the idea, to a day that was just insanely bad.
Yeah, and you have to think about the just mentally where the players are and having the adjustment in the schedule. I do applaud, though, those involved in making this decision, and whether 24 hours is enough. You certainly hope that it is, but to kind of reassess, and I know that they did a grid search and they were looking for other potential. Kind of goes back to my original point, and I never got around to making it, was that we have so many events and so many games like this that we don't have more instances of this, which really makes you appreciate law and intelligence and trying to gather this information and to keep everybody safe. But just think about the number of play during the course of a college football season and how many different potential area are, and for this to happen, it's horrible. It's very, very sad, but I applaud the folks of New all those involved in trying to just kind of take a step back and realize, the big picture and keeping the main thing the main thing.
So the governor of Louisiana yesterday, he declared it a state of emergency, which that would mean that he could send out the National Guard and he could do certain things, and understand that I think there's over 100 National Guardsmen that will be utilized tonight around the Superdome, as well as there have been many municipalities around the state of Louisiana where the deputies and the sheriffs have all volunteered to be deputized and to come into New Orleans and to help with any type of security issues that they potentially would have around the Superdome. So the people of Louisiana are obviously standing up together.
That's awesome, yeah.
Wanting to do what they could. Conrad, there is a football game that will be played at 3 o'clock today, and I know you and Damien were talking about this morning on Morning Jocks, but when you think about the logistics of the football game, it was originally scheduled to be later tonight. And then all of a sudden, both Georgia and Notre Dame said, okay, let's talk about the football aspect to this. And let's also talk about that Penn State is going to have 2 additional days to prepare for the next round of the playoffs. We need to play this game as soon as possible. And then we saw the change to 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that came as a shock to anybody, especially with Kirby. I think we all knew that he was going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that his team had as much time to prepare, or, should they win today, for that Penn State matchup in the semifinals. And, I know there were a lot of people that were saying, oh, well, why even play the game? Let's play the game this weekend or something like that. And just the logistical challenges that something like that would cause, or trying to move the game to a different site. I just don't know how feasible that is. But, kind of to echo some of the things that Landrum said, you have to give major kudos to law enforcement there in New Orleans and Louisiana, who's been working tirelessly for over 30 hours now, getting a handle on this situation and making sure that tonight or this game this afternoon can go on and everyone can feel safe. So, I think that football is not the most important thing in the world, as we all understand. People's safety is more important than football, but I'm glad that they were able to come to some sort of an understanding where you're not going to have maybe a major competitive advantage for Penn State versus whoever comes out of the Sugar Bowl a victor today.
Yeah, that is so very true. So that game can be heard right here on Jocks 94.5. 3 o'clock is kickoff, as it will be decided who is ended up in the semifinal bracket, as we will talk about the rest of the college football playoff throughout the show. But we've got to start with the absolutely embarrassing loss by Alabama to a Michigan team, Landrum, that had not only both hands tied behind their back, but one of their legs also tied behind their back, because this was a team that no one, and I'm talking about even the people in the state of Michigan, they gave them no shot. The people that follow this football team, not only did Nick Kelly tell us on this show prior to New Year's that Alabama would win by 3 touchdowns, but that basically was every Michigan website behind the paywall. They predicted it would be lucky if Michigan scored at least 10 points in the football game. It was just another atrocious.
All the different ways that Alabama, once again, fell short, and that a lot of those reasons they led to another loss, and loss number 4 on the season. Can't believe we're talking about that. But big picture, if you just want a snapshot, the 2024 season for Kalen DeBoer in his first year, I'd have to rule it, if you're going to say pass or failure, you gotta say it was a failure just by Alabama standards and what the expectation is. And this was a chance to go out, beat a team that you should have beaten. I don't know where the incentive was for. But you know what? That's on you, whether it's a coaching staff or on the players themselves. I saw a lot of fight and a lot of want to. I didn't see a whole lot of execution, and I continued to see Alabama. But when you think about the Oklahoma game and going to Norman and having a Jackson Arnold quarterback that only has to throw it 11, they threw it maybe with another quarterback coming in, a total of 13 times. You had the same thing with, it was almost like make less mistakes and play solid defense, and we can beat this Alabama football team. And that's Kalen DeBoer in year 1, if you want to sum it all up and just look at the whole body of work.
Yeah, I think kind of like Landrum said, I mean, if you had told me that they paused at the end of the Oklahoma game and then just kept playing for another 60 minutes. I feel like that's what you saw on Tuesday against Michigan in that game. And I think the thing I know it'll stick with me the most in the offseason, I think it'll stick with the fan base the most, is you are now, if you're Kalen DeBoer, you are 5-4 in your last 9 games as the head coach at Alabama. And 3 of those games, you lost to teams that you were double digits favorites over, which means you have lost the same number of games as a double-digit favorite in 1 year as Nick Saban lost in 17 years in Tuscaloosa. And there's a lot we can get into. I know we have a lot of time to talk about this, but that performance was absolutely unacceptable. The fact that Jalen Milroe did not get benched at any point in that game, and I know we're going to hear from Kalen DeBoer and his reasoning for that, I vehemently disagree with that decision. And I think that was embarrassing and honestly disrespectful to the players that went out there and tried to win a bowl game, that you're going to leave him in there and not bring in another guy that doesn't have a history. Granted, we haven't seen him as much, but you have a starting quarterback that turns the ball over 3 times in your first 4 possessions, and that's not worthy of benching him, similar to the Oklahoma game, where I think he should have gotten benched in that game. But Kalen DeBoer wanted to stick with his guys, and I think that was a terrible decision on his part, and he deserves to take flack for that.
Well, and you think about it, think about 47 points scored in the last 12 quarters against mediocre football teams at best.
Not great.
And I guess my thing kind of watching Alabama this season, they've been a pretty difficult team to sort of figure out because, when you look at, okay, for example, their big games, they didn't really have any trouble, except for Tennessee, of course, but, you go in and you beat Georgia. When you beat LSU, they were ranked. You beat South Carolina, who was also vying for a spot for the CFP. I mean, even Missouri, we know this is a different Missouri team now, but they were still ranked when you beat them, yet you go and you lose to Vanderbilt. You take an embarrassing loss, like I said, to Tennessee, another one to Oklahoma, and then you lose to a Michigan team that half of their roster had opted out. So how is this the same team that beat Georgia, but that lost to Oklahoma and Michigan?
Well, I think that's why most of the coaches and fans and everybody else is asking that same question. Like, what's the mindset? Like, what happened? Because Alabama had Landrum done pretty well when they had a little bit of time off, whether it was a bye week or you had weeks off, to prepare for an opponent. And you were preparing for an opponent, as Molly just pointed out, that literally, if you looked at Michigan's depth chart, they were playing 3rd and 4th string guys. And Alabama didn't have many guys, if any, opted out. This was, according to 247, Alabama had the most talented roster in all of college football this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you just got beat by a team that had massive, massive opt-outs.
It's Michigan's second string. Let's call it what it was. You lost to Michigan's second string.
And I know they were talking about on the broadcast about, Michigan, they were going to let it all out and they were going to take some chances, and they did that, and it backfired early. It didn't really hurt them too bad, but it was very vanilla on both sides of the ball. Wink Martindale, I know that he does some exotic stuff and he puts pressure on an opposing offense, but that was pretty much, boilerplate stuff. And Jalen Milroe not taking care of the football. By the way, the 10 minutes of rain that they had. But then when Jalen Milroe gets in the shotgun, were you guys not immediately thinking he's going to fumble this ball?
Oh, the commentator said, with the rain like this, ball security is the most important thing. You got to protect the ball. Next snap, fumble, ball on the ground. It was like clockwork, Landrum. You're right.
Yeah, his ball security, whether it was his first appearance, you remember when he jumped on the scene when he had to come in for Bryce Young at Arkansas.
Yep.
And then he got his first start the very next week against Jimbo Fisher, in which, remember, that was the countdown game that every single day I would come on this radio show and I would say, okay, 3 days away from the Jimbo Fisher ass whipping in Tuscaloosa. And then he single-handedly gave Texas A&M every opportunity, including a last-minute drive that almost
came to the last play of the game.
Yeah, it caused the Aggies to upset Alabama in Tuscaloosa. This is what Jalen Milroe has done his entire career at Alabama.
Yep.
And I think that's why it has frustrated a lot of people around the program and fans, because when the ceiling and when he's good, it's very difficult for anybody in America to say that guy right there is one of the best players in all of college football. But unfortunately for Jalen Milroe, you have seen way too many times, like you did against Michigan, where he is a turnover machine. And when guys are running wide open in the secondary, and when you have a guy like Osweiler during a broadcast to even point out all the things that Jalen Milroe is doing wrong, I mean, that's kind of rubbing salt in the wound. So what happened? Why was...
Felt like, I mean, there's things that he still did. We scored a field goal, with him using his legs. We went 95-plus yards in less than a minute, and so just that factor and what we needed with him and his mobility added to the run game, I felt like that was, the swap right there. So, I mean, the interception early, and you want a lot of those incompletions happened in down at distances that weren't favorable, or backs to the wall and have to throw the ball at the end of the first half, at the end of the second here. So I know that gets away from you from the completion percentage, but I thought there were still a lot of good plays that he made too, and the fight in his eyes, and as long as I see that, I want to hang in there with the guys that this program means a lot to.
Well, it's good to know that as long as you have a look in your eyes, even if you play like crap on the field, you're still going to be left out there. That's what we all look for in trying to win a football game, right? Is, that guy was fighting.
Well, I mean, we want to talk about first for Kalen DeBoer, and I'll be critical, but this is the first time in looking back at this season, and especially it was the exclamation point clock struck 0 at Raymond James Stadium. Alabama looks like a lot of other teams in college football, and we have 19 years. It's been Alabama, a couple of other teams, and then everybody else, but Alabama looks very ordinary right now as a football program.
I would say less than average. I wouldn't even go that far as to say ordinary.
Also, that interception was terrible. I know he's trying to make it seem like it was some amazing one-handed behind the back, closed eyes interception by Michigan. That's the same throw that Jalen Milroe made against Oklahoma multiple times. Same throw he made against Texas last year multiple. He has thrown more interceptions on those little 5-yard out routes than any quarterback I've ever seen in my life. It's astounding.
Well, and also I want to point one thing out. We've got plenty of time and we want to hear from you on this reaction Thursday. 1-800-239-WJOX. The courtesy GMC text line is open at 205-834-9450. I thought the decision for them to go for it on fourth down on that opening possession by Alabama was a horrible, terrible call.
Stupid.
Like that should not even, because one thing is for sure, if you would have kicked the ball, even if even if it was been a touchback, okay, even if you don't down it inside the 20 and it's a touchback, you're asking that Michigan offense that you saw throughout the day, very difficult for them to go the length of the field and score.
Oh, you mean the one that only scored 3 points when Alabama didn't give them the ball in their territory pretty much?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I thought the play calling by Nick Sherrod, and we're going to talk to Rodney Orr coming up at 11 o'clock. We're going to get his thoughts on the season that was. Alabama goes 9-4, ends a 16-year streak. That was the longest in college football history of winning at least 10 games. So that is off the board now. And Kalen DeBoer falls into the trap of being another first-year Alabama head football coach to lose at least 4 games. So didn't think that was going to happen, especially playing a Michigan team that was so hampered with opt-outs, but here we are.
Yeah, well, if you need a place later on, again, the Sugar Bowl going to be going on at 3 o'clock. You can listen to it right here on Jocks 94.5, but if you want to get in somewhere and watch it, maybe enjoy some nice food at the same time, go to Twin Peaks and Hoover. They're going to have plenty of screens where you can catch all the action right there. Of course, they're 29-degree man-sized drafts, some of their new kitchen options as well. No better way to start off the new year than go watching the Sugar Bowl at Twin Peaks and Hoover. They also sponsor our daily poll question here on Three Man Front. And today's poll question reads, which Alabama loss this season was the most inexcusable? Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Michigan, or all 4 of the losses? And winning right now by a pretty wide margin is Oklahoma with 50% of the vote, all 4 losses, 28%, Vanderbilt, 13%, and Michigan all the way in last place at only 9%. A little surprised Michigan was the last place pick there.
I think it's going to be a while before people get that Oklahoma loss, that taste out of their mouth.
That's how I voted.
Glad I didn't go to Tampa.
Yeah.
It seems like a decade ago that we saw that half of football against Georgia.
It seems like a very long time ago. I also realized as you brought it up, I was also at that Texas A&M game that Milroe started, so I just have a very bad. Yeah, I know, Molly.
That's where you're so bitter about.
I was at the Missouri game.
I have a lot of bad Alabama games in the last couple of years.
All right, so Rodney Orr is going to join us. Griffith is going to join us at 12 noon. From Brett Norsworthy will join us at 12. from Jacksonville as Ole Miss gets ready to face Duke tonight in the Gator Bowl. But next, we're going to take your phone calls at 1-800-239-WJOX. Don't go anywhere. This is Reaction Thursday. Didn't think we'd be having this type of reaction after the Alabama-Michigan game, but here we are. This is Jocks 94.5. It is 10:24, Jocks 94.5 on this Thursday. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. The whole team, Pat, Landrum, Conrad, 5 as the Georgia Bulldogs try to become the second SEC team to punch their ticket to the national semifinals. To the phones we go at 1-800-239-WJOX. Bama Hater starts us off.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year,
Happy
Bama
New
Hater.
Year.
Hope you're well.
Happy New Year.
Hey, man, before I get my comments on Milroe, I just want to ask Conrad one question.
What you got?
Conrad, can you please go to the Eastern Illinois game next year?
I'll see what I can do for you, Bama Hater.
Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, man, Pat.
Yes, sir.
I just be messing with you, man, when I Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But let me give you guys my opinion on Milroe.
Sure.
I don't think it's a fair thing for you guys to criticize Milroe when he's all you guys had the whole season. Now, when he beat Georgia, they celebrated Milroe. When he ran for 4 or 5 touchdowns in one game, you guys celebrated Milroe. But as soon as they lose, he's the scapegoat. Because if they had somebody to replace Milroe, don't you think they would have replaced him? So evidently they didn't.
I think there's a case of loyalty Based on the people I talked to around that football team, you're looking at a head coach that is extremely loyal to the players and very loyal to the assistant coaches. And so it was going to literally have to be an injury for him to remove Milroe as the quarterback.
And now, Pat, me and you, we went back and forth about who should be in and who should be out. Are you finally ready to admit that Alabama was not a playoff team?
The conversations that you and I had prior and right after the CFP came out, my conclusion was that SMU should not have been in, but an SEC team. Not so much just Alabama, but I thought South Carolina and Ole Miss, all of those teams had better opportunities to get into the college football playoff than SMU. So it wasn't just Alabama I was pointing out, but the other SEC teams.
All right, I can concede to that, but I want to ask you guys one question, and I'm going to let everybody else talk. Did Arizona State get screwed yesterday with a non-targeting call that was missed?
I thought it was targeting. When I saw it live, I thought it should have been flagged, and I was shocked that it was not.
Yeah, me too. But, hey, man, y'all guys have a great new year.
Hey, Bama Hater, can I ask you a question real quick?
Of course.
All right, so how would you feel if Jalen Milroe came back to college, entered the portal, and went to Miami? Would you be excited about that for next year?
No, sirree, Bob.
Okay, I was just curious.
I think he needs to. Maybe he needs to do like Jalen Hurts did. Just go to a different program and see if a coach can develop him.
Just not Miami.
I mean, he's a good athlete, but he's just a Derrick Henry that can throw the ball. That's what he is.
Well, sometimes he can throw the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, you have a good one.
Thank you, Bama Hater.
Go let Milroe play in Rhett Lashley's offense in SMU.
Go play for Gus Malzahn at FSU next year.
You know,
he likes running quarterbacks.
I apologize to the audience that I had no idea that Chip Lindsey was going to be the new offensive coordinator at Michigan. Did you realize that?
Not until the game when they were talking about it. And I was like, oh man,
he was there on the sideline, wasn't he?
Either that or in the box, sitting next to the.
I thought I saw him on the sideline.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, once again, I mean, if Scott Loeffler could be a head coach,
it's just a carousel of these coaches of getting third, fourth, and fifth opportunities.
And giving Chip Lindsey an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator
with your $12 million quarterback you just got out of high school.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, Michigan can't be worse on offense. I think Chip Lindsey. I think he's a good offensive mind.
That's where you and I disagree.
I do. I totally do.
I think he's
and maybe some of it goes back to your high school days of playing in the same region with him. But I do. I respect him as an offensive mind. And when he was not in bad situations, and the thing at Auburn, that was it was any coordinator that came in there. They weren't given an opportunity, but he's had other successful stops.
And maybe the situation that took place at Troy, maybe that kind of
that probably
gives me a little bit of pause if I want to hire Chip Lindsey. But
yeah.
Some Alabama roster news. We were just talking about Jalen Milroe. His future is still questionable. And that's got a lot of people nervous. The number one text message that I've got within the last 24 to 36 hours has been, please tell me that they're not going to let him come back.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because you just brought up the loyalty of Kalen DeBoer and why maybe Milroe wasn't benched this year. Would that be a factor where if he came back, do you think that Alabama would welcome him back, or would they tell him, I think you'd be better suited to hit the transfer portal?
I think he's done.
Okay. You think the loyalty has come to an end?
I think that loyalty ended when the season ended.
Okay.
That's been my perspective, and that's what I've been told.
There's an audible sigh of relief around the Birmingham metro area.
I have been told, and Rodney Orr will join us in 30 minutes, and we'll ask him the exact same question. But I have been told that the anticipation is that if Milroe wants to play more football in college, it will not be in Tuscaloosa.
And you know what? Yes. And I could see Alabama, they wouldn't be willing to probably pony up what his market value is going to be.
No.
There will be another team that if he decided that he wanted to play another year of college football that would pay him stupid money to do it.
There's no question. Now, they did get good news on the defensive side as LT Overton.
Yep.
And this is interesting because, and this is just one perspective, but I was looking at the Pro Football Focus early mock draft that literally came out within the last 24 hours. And Overton was the first Alabama player, according to Pro Football Focus, that would be taken in the draft.
Oh, wow. He was ahead of Booker?
He was ahead of Booker.
Was he in the first round?
He was in the first round. High first round.
I saw a lot of second round.
I should say late first round.
Yeah.
Late first round. But he announced yesterday on Instagram that he is returning for his senior season. Overton led all Alabama pass rushers with 38 pressures in 2024. No other Crimson Tide player had more than 19. So that is good news.
Yes.
He also tallied 42 tackles, 1 pass breakup, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He split time with Latham at the bandit position.
Another player who might be coming back?
Yep. So Overton, of course, transferred to Alabama ahead of the 2024 season after 2 seasons at Texas A&M. He is eligible for the NFL, so that may change if he gets some information that would signify him being maybe a late first rounder or early second rounder.
I was surprised, though, because everything I've seen had him first or second round, and typically you go when that's what the NFL's telling you, so that would be big for Alabama.
But you also have a situation now, Landrum, with the NIL. These guys could, to stay in college another year, roll the dice.
Yep.
To potentially roll the dice.
Yep.
To potentially play in the NFL.
Improve your stock. I have to remember it was PFF that put out this draft grade.
That's correct. Yeah.
So he's probably like a 4th or 5th round pick.
It's kind of like tuning into MSNBC for a national political poll. You just have to take it with a grain of salt and know maybe where they're coming from.
Very true.
That's all I'm saying.
More of your phone calls. We will get to your text messages as well. This is 3-Man Front on this Thursday, Jocks 94.5. It is 10:35, Jocks 94.5, 1-800-239-WJOX, a full bank of calls. Text line is coming in at 205-834-9450, brought to you by Courtesy GMC.
Well, if you're looking to upgrade and enhance your outdoor living area and landscape, our friends at Second Generation Masonry, that's a team for beautifying any area. Their expert team crafts durable brick, concrete, and elegant stone creations that elevate any space, from fire pits, maybe an outdoor Walls, stone patios, and walkways to custom driveways. These are your guys. Take your outdoor living area to the next level. SecondGenerationMasonry.com. Look at some of the completed projects, both residential and commercial. SecondGenerationMasonry.com. Get the free quote today. Make sure you tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
So don't forget, this afternoon at 3 o'clock right here on Jock's 94.5, you can hear the Sugar Bowl in its entirety right here on Jock's as Georgia and Notre Dame, they try to punch their ticket to the next round of the college football playoff. If so, they would play Penn State in the Orange Bowl, which would be a week from today. And as of right now, Vegas has a couple of futures out there. Penn State versus Georgia. Georgia would be a 2-point favorite against the Nittany Lions. If Notre Dame plays Penn State, the Fighting Irish would be a 2-point favorite against the Nittany Lions. So the Nittany Lions would be an underdog no matter who they would face, according to Vegas. Let's go to Hoover. Dave joins us here on Three Man Front.
Hey, guys, I would talk about Georgia. I'm a little bit nervous. I guess Georgia goes is how Gunnar Stockton goes today. I think that's going to be the whole key. They are healthy. I am worried about arm tackling because Kirby said they hadn't been able to scrimmage for 3 weeks because they've had a bunch of players hit the transfer portal and they're low on depth. But what I wanted to talk about is Milroe. If you remember last year after beating Georgia in the SEC championship game, he was beating his chest saying, give me the Heisman. But I'm now starting to think that I think Bill O'Brien actually saw something because my knock on Milroe is he has all the tools. He can extend plays. He improved a little bit in the drop back as far as moving up the pocket. But when adversity hits, he sulks. He goes to the bench. He sits by himself. He doesn't walk around. As a quarterback, you don't have to be a leader, but you need to be vocal. You need to talk to your players. Go to the line. Pump them, pat them on the back. Let's go. We can do it. 1 touchdown. We're in this thing. Let's go. Let's do it. But he's not talking to his quarterback. Tennessee game, he's sitting on the end of the bench, twirling his hair, chewing his mouthpiece, talking to a girl that was standing there.
He's a momentum player to a T.
Exactly. And I think maybe Bill O'Brien said, this guy's got a lot of upside, but with his size and speed, he'd make an ideal outside linebacker or safety. But I just don't see he has the attribute to be a quarterback to get his team to that next step because he's a me guy.
Well, one thing's for sure, Dave, I think over the last 6 weeks of the season, he lost money because there was a lot of NFL scouts that showed up at that bowl game looking at one person, and that would be Jalen Milroe. And I just do not think they walked away going, you know what? This is someone that we would even be remotely considered to give up a high draft pick to try to bring him in as a quarterback.
In the 9 games since Alabama beat Georgia, Milroe threw for 1,800 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
In 9 games.
That's tough.
But it's the way he handles it. Why is he sitting on the bench by him? Where's the quarterback's coach? Where are the receivers? Why is he sitting by himself when they obviously – why is he not walking along the bench and talking to people and pumping them up and getting them fired up? Because it's not like they're completely getting blown out except for, the Oklahoma game where they only scored 3 points. But I don't know. I just don't – it's a head scratcher to me.
Well, Dave, I brought this up after the Vanderbilt game. First off, I thought it was ridiculous to put the C on everybody's jerseys as team captains at Alabama. Had never been done before, but they did it this year. I think you kind of put yourself in a box with that. That Vanderbilt game, he showed no captaincy. He didn't do anything.
No.
When the defense needed to have a big stop on that last drive by Vanderbilt before Vanderbilt just ran the clock out, he was over there he was on the bench.
By himself.
He wasn't in the white rooting on the defense.
Right.
He was not being a team captain. And you're absolutely right. I agree with you guys 100%. When things are going well, it's great for him to have these programmed Nick Saban speeches after these games. Mm-hmm. He is so programmed in regards to what he says to the media. But it's one thing to say something. It's another to go out and actually do it. And that was the problem with Milroe. Dave, thanks for the call. Enjoy the game today. Appreciate it. Let's go to Crimson Convict. He joins us now on Three Man Front.
What's up, guys? Y'all have good holidays?
We did. How about you?
No, it was good. You just feel like you need a vacation afterwards with all the family that comes in.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing. Pat, what was the award, the academic award that Milroe won that they highlighted during the bowl game?
Yeah, it was the academic Heisman. And I apologize that I do not know that off the top of my head, but it was the academic Heisman Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For a guy who has earned 2 degrees, why can't this guy dissect the defense? That is Milroe's problem. He is not cerebral. He's got all the talent in the world.
By the way, Crimson Convict, that's the William V. Campbell Trophy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He is not cerebral enough to dissect the defense pre-snap, and that was true. There were people in, and he could not make the connection. He could not make the read. But with that being said, we got our butts whipped by a second-team defense with multiple first-round draft picks on our line. If you can't keep the quarterback upright, he doesn't have time to make a read. And, Pat, my question is this. Are we doubling down on our OC and DC next year?
I will tell you this. I think there's some serious questions going on at the OC position at Alabama. I think Kane Womack has proven.
He did a great job.
Especially with that defense and the turnovers that they created there in the second half. I think Womack is good to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the serious question is having a first-year offensive coordinator in the SEC, first time he's ever been the OC anywhere, to handle that at Alabama and have Jalen Milroe as the quarterback. I think there's serious questions about him being the play caller next year.
And one more question. Do we see any type of relief, because Pat and Landrum and Conrad, there's a lot of dark clouds on the horizon with a stationary front behind it, because we're getting our butts whipped in the portal. We're getting our butts whipped in recruiting because we've had and I see a piñata party coming in the spring if we don't shore things up, because how are we going to get the talent in here and maintain it to even give DeBoer an opportunity to right the ship?
Well,
I agree with you.
Well, here's the thing. And we've had multiple people tell me this off the air and on the air, whether it's Mike Rodak, Nick Kelly, Rodney Orr is going to join us at the top of the hour. Right now, Alabama is in a roster crunch from a numbers standpoint. So that's why you're not seeing Alabama do a lot in the transfer portal, because they honestly just do not have the numbers. There's also some questions on what's going to happen with this house settlement, whether it's going to be 105 as your roster limit, or is it going to be 85? Or is it going to go back to the way it has been? So there's a lot of potential walk-ons. There's a lot of guys that their futures are up in the air. I think and personally believe that Alabama is going to have to get to the point very soon where he might have to pull a Deion Sanders, and he might basically have to purge that roster a little bit. I know that they had to hold on to a lot of guys because, listen, they had so many jumping ship that they literally had to keep that roster together the best that they could. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Kalen DeBoer was happy with what he had to work with just because of his style. That's not an excuse why Alabama went 9-4. I'm just telling you that's what people tell me around the program, is that this is basically not Kalen DeBoer's offense because he did not have the tools that he needed. Well, you've got Courtney Morgan there that's getting paid an awful lot of money. He's the general manager of this football team. So now it's his time to shine, to tell guys, hey, we just don't have room on this roster anymore. Need to hit the road to being a full.
And then right now, looking at next year from a 9-4 football team this season, where are you going to be definitively better as you look at right now? If you go position by position.
I agree.
Well, on offense, you've got question marks, but defense has the potential to be even better than it was this year.
Agree. Yeah.
Roger that. All right, man. I'll catch up. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Crimson Convict. More of your calls, your texts as well. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Some news coming out of Sanford University. Sanford football has just announced that they will play the Baylor Bears coming up in 2025. So think about this. On September 13th, Sanford will travel there to McLean Stadium there in Waco, Texas. And on August the 30th, the Auburn Tigers will be there. So the people in Waco will get a chance to go to was it La Casita?
Mi Casita.
Mi Casita.
There is a Mi Casita when I was going for the holidays to Gadsden. There's a Mexican restaurant called Mi Casita, on the way to Gadsden.
Can we go?
So Mi Casita. So if you're an Auburn fan, go check out Mi Casita. Or if
Sit in
you're
Scott Drew's seat.
Yep, a Sanford fan, you'll get an opportunity there in Waco.
Baylor's a Baptist school too, right?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, if you can't go to Mi Casita, another place you can check out is Big Whiskey's, because they are your place for great food of all varieties with a full menu with apps, salads, burgers to steaks. Their bar features unique cocktails, over 120 whiskeys, including whiskey on tap, and plenty of screens to catch all the games all weekend long. They also have different food and drink specials each day of the week. They have happy hour, and the kitchen is open late every single night. So go check them out in the Stadium Trace Village off Highway 150 near the Hoover Met.
Let's get to a couple of quick text messages before we get back to the phone calls, Conrad, on the Courtesy GMC text line.
Yes, we have, let's see, Tim who texted in, and he says, Conrad strikes again by picking Alabama to win. Hope he makes a prediction on the Georgia game today. I know the Georgia fans hope he picks Georgia. I do like Georgia, so that means Notre Dame's inevitably going to win. Let's see. Ian texted in and says, Happy New Year. Molly with the best point that Michigan defense was second string against Bama's best. Complete domination makes you scratch your head. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Let's see. Proper planning. Mark texted in, proper planning prevents poor performance. That's some good alliteration there. He says, DeBoer failed as a coach this season, did about what I expected. There are more poor performances to come for Alabama. Not sounding too confident there. Frank texted in, he says, I know you radio guys keep defending DeFraud, but he is not the guy to lead this Alabama program. Without Ryan Grubb and Michael Penix, he is Gene Chizik without Gus Malzahn and Cam Newton.
Bye.
That is an interesting point. I do want to throw out this real quick. I did a little research. So last year, the final year under Nick Saban and, of course, Mr. Reese.
Tommy Reese, yep.
Tommy Reese is your offensive coordinator. Alabama had an average of 393 yards of offense per game. That was 58th nationally. This year, under Kalen DeBoer, the offense improved 17 yards more per game, and they were 44th nationally. Now, that is total offense. Now, I've had coaches tell me before it's great to have those numbers, total offense, but at the end of the day, it's about how many points you score, period. So let's look at scoring offense. Last year, under Nick Saban, Alabama averaged 34 points per game. That was 24th nationally. This year, under DeBoer, Alabama averaged 33.8 points per game, 24th nationally. So they finished exactly the same nationally in scoring as they did last year.
With an offensive-minded head coach.
By the way, the Seahawks are, I think, 14th in total offense.
They were pretty good. They're doing pretty well this year in the NFL. We have somebody else texting in. They say, as an Alabama fan and graduate, I don't have a problem with Milroe. I have a problem with the coaching. They need to know when to make changes and then make them.
We will continue with your text messages. Let's get back to the phones, though. I try to grab a couple more before we get Rodney Orr on coming up at 11 o'clock, and then we will open up the phone lines back up at 11:15. Let's go to Greenville. Robert joins us here on Three Man Front. Hey, Robert.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good.
Listen, first of all, I think that Alabama fans just need, and myself included, just need to understand, look, we all knew that this was going to be a transition year, and DeBoer has won more games than any other first-year coach in the history of the program, and he had to deal with 26 players leaving the transfer portal, 39 total off the roster. He had 16 new starters, and it was impossible for people to think that this was going to be a championship season. Did I think that this should have been a playoff team this year? Absolutely. But I believe that you've got to give this coaching staff an opportunity with a full year in a transfer portal to get this roster straightened out. Like you said, there's going to be some players that are going to have to be asked to leave the program, and I do believe that there needs to be another quarterback in place to run the short and intermediate type passes that is required to run this DeBoer offense. And I think that's where Jalen Milroe has failed, whereas he's a great runner, he's a great deep ball passer. But look, I just think that we saw improvement in DeBoer in the second year at Washington, which was last season with 14 wins. And all I'm trying to say is Alabama fans, you have every right to be disappointed, but I do not believe in firing coaches, including Nick Sheridan, even though he had two really bad games in his last three games. I just think that you need a complete off season to get everything together. And not only that, but let's get behind this basketball team. They're ranked number 5 in the country, and they're 11-2 and have a shot at going back to the Final Four. And just let everything breathe and let DeBoer and his staff get everything together. And I do think that they picked up some good players in the transfer portal. I just think, like Alabama, there's a lot of uncertainty about these rosters because, like you said, of the House settlement and different things. We don't know how many players are going to be each roster. But I just think that we just need to give DeBoer a chance to get his staff, not only get his staff together, but get the type of players needed that fits his offense, his defensive systems well. I just think and I think Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, and probably a transfer from I don't know where it's going to be vying for the starting quarterback job this spring. I don't give the freshman much of a chance because it's hard for freshman quarterbacks to win the Southeastern Conference in his first year. But let's give DeBoer a chance.
Okay, thank you. One thing's for sure, Alabama's going to give him a big chance, Landrum, because if you fired him today, you would owe him $69.3 million.
I agree with some of what Robert said, but as far as replacing guys and having new, that's not unique to Alabama.
No.
This is the transfer portal era. There's all kinds of programs that are having to either replace a coordinator, a quarterback, the entire offensive line, wide receivers. Alabama didn't handle it as well as some of those programs. But it's tough to stomach when you look at a Tennessee team who offensively, and that was kind of their MO, offensively, some of the playmakers. And Nico wasn't everything that some people thought he was going to be, but they still managed to beat an Alabama team and to get to a college football playoff.
And to prove the fact that it is a changing world, not only is Clemson grabbing players out of the transfer portal, word started leaking out last night that he is firing his defensive coordinator, Dabo is. And so
what a change.
If you didn't think that change was here in college football, not only is Dabo now getting players out of the portal, but he is about to fire a coach. That is something that you just do not see Dabo Swinney do.
No, and I will add this to Robert's call quickly. Keelan Russell, the freshman quarterback for Alabama, did an interview with On3 this weekend, and they want me to come and be the starting quarterback ASAP.
There you go.
So it seems like, in my opinion, I think he will have an opportunity to win the job in the spring.
So many questions about Rodney Orr from Titling In Now. We're going to get to all your phone calls as soon as Rodney Orr tells us what's up with this Alabama football team. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. We appreciate so many of you calling in. We will get to your phone calls at 1-800-239-WJOX, the courtesy GMC text line as well at 205-834-9450. This afternoon, Georgia will take on Notre Dame in the conclusion of late after the horrible terrorist event that took place in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. Just a couple moments ago, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry gave a press conference, and he said the following: "We're going to enjoy ourselves at the game. Right now, this is one of the safest places on earth." To Tuscaloosa, Alabama now. On the Buyers Ride hotline, Rodney Orr joins us from Tider Insider. And Rodney, you have been around this football team for many, many years. There's been many perplexing years for Alabama football. Didn't have a lot of them under Nick Saban, but for some reason, yesterday's game had a striking resemblance to me of the old.
It was, well, I can tell you this. It couldn't have gotten off to a worse start for sure. I mean, the 3 turnovers, first 10 minutes of the game. Here's the thing. I just think, to be honest with you, watching it, it was heading into this game, you looked at Michigan as such a depleted team. They were without their top 2 running backs, their starting left tackle, their star tight end, 3 outstanding defensive linemen, 2 of which could go in the first round. Certainly one will. A cornerback who's going to be a first-round draft pick, a safety who had a couple of interceptions, had been a key player for them. They were without all those guys, 21 or so opt-outs, whatever it was. It was a depleted team. They had an average quarterback to begin with, right? I mean, he threw 6 touchdown passes and 9 interceptions in 8 games. So they weren't an effective passing team. Their receivers weren't necessarily much of a threat. They were a pretty limited football team. So you kind of suspected that Alabama would have a pretty good chance of having a good day, and it just didn't go well.
Rodney, when you're asked about Kalen DeBoer's first season at Alabama, let's just say 10 years from now, how will you describe it to someone who didn't witness it?
I'll say this, Landrum. Again, a lot will happen. Narratives, I guess, depending on what happens in the future. You can look back one day and say, that first year was really tough, but he learned a lot. He made a change here, made a change there that he felt was necessary on his staff, if he feels that's necessary. So it was a great just first year transition experience for him. Or, if it doesn't go well next year, maybe the next year, then you just say, you know what, it was a sign of things to come. So, I mean, right now, I just think that we really don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that's the only assessment we can have. I mean, I think there's a lot of positive things that we've seen, but there's also some, as Pat used the word perplexing, I think there's a lot of perplexing things.
So, Rodney, realistically, heading into 2025, I think we can assume that whether it's in the NFL or a different team in college, Jalen Milroe will not be the quarterback next year. So whether it's Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, whoever it is, realistically, how different do you think this offense can look next year?
Well, this is just me, okay? This is my opinion. Some people may not agree with it. Some people may think it's a little strong. I think if they had good quarterback play on a consistent basis this year, they would have been in the playoffs. They weren't that far off. I think, and I'm certainly not blaming Milroe for what happened at Vanderbilt. Thought he played pretty well for the most part in that game. I think, the Tennessee game wasn't his best, certainly, but I think Oklahoma and Michigan, Michigan wouldn't have been a part of the playoff consideration, but I think had they gotten better quarterback play alone, it would have put them in a great position to been successful this year. Again, it's not all the issues that they had, for sure. That's not it. So, but moving forward, where they are right now, I think that Ty Simpson is a guy that brings a lot of the qualities that Kalen DeBoer looks for in his quarterback and the offense that they want to run. He's a guy that's a passer first, but he is very athletic. He can move around. He improvises really, really well. The problem is he doesn't have a lot of game experience. So unless you go out into the portal in this portal period and find a quarterback that's an experienced, proven quarterback, you're going to enter next year with a guy with not much experience. And I want to say I don't have any hint that Alabama will look for a quarterback to be the starter that's not on the roster right now.
Rodney, is it your feeling as of today at 11:05 Central Time on the day after Alabama loses to Michigan that Jalen Milroe's time at Alabama is complete?
That's my feeling. Yes. Yes. I mean, I think the expectation has been that he's going to declare for the NFL. Now could that change in terms of, other schools coming in? I'm sure Miami, there's been speculation about them, speculation about USC and other teams that might have some interest if Milroe wanted to consider, another year in college, which might be good for him. But I think right now, and again, this is not anything against him or anyone else, but I think there comes a time when there needs to be a split. And I think now's the time for whether if he decides to stay in college, I don't think he needs to be at Alabama. I think DeBoer, they have to move forward with their kind of quarterback, with the system that they want to run, their system. That's what needs to be done. And I think for Milroe, if he decided to stay in college, it'd probably be best for him to find another place to play. But right now, I would say probably the NFL.
Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, joining us here on Three Man Front. All of our guests join us on the Buyers Right Insurance Hotline. So, Rodney, obviously, if you get better quarterback play in 2025, that would be nice for the offense and probably could mean more wins for Alabama. What other positions do you think Alabama needs to upgrade heading into next season?
Well, I mean, I think right now they've got to continue to get better up front on both sides of the ball. I think there was some good on both sides of the line of scrimmage, but I think they need to get better at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, dominate more up front. So that's one thing. I look at, if you just look at the running backs, and I like Jam Miller. I think he's a really good player. Richard Young brings something too. I think you need a guy who can a game breaker at tailback. I don't know if A.K. Deere coming in can be that guy. I know there's been a little buzz about Kevin Riley, the freshman that's here right now, but the distance and really be an exciting player for you in that rotation. Wide receiver, I think they're going to get that. Williams are two really, really good players. I liked what I saw of Rico Scott, and I have liked what I've seen of him in the past. I think he's a guy that potentially is a really good player. I know they've got a couple of guys coming in, Latsier Brooks and Derek Meadows, but also the Isaiah Horton transfer from Miami. This guy that's going to really should make a strong contribution. But I think they've got to upgrade there. And, I think an inside backer is going to be really key. They got the transfer from Colorado. So those are just some of the spots that kind of come to my mind, kind of off the top of my head.
Rodney, I wanted to ask you about two players in particular, a little bit of good news, I guess, given the circumstance, but LT Overton announced his intention to come back for another year at Alabama. So I was kind of curious on how big of an impact you think him returning will have for that defense. And I also wanted to ask you if you've heard anything regarding Damani Jackson and his decision to either come back for another year or test the NFL waters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really big, Overton. I think he showed a lot of flashes this year. A good year, another good year here. Certainly be helpful for Alabama, but for him too, because I think he has a ton of ability. A lot of people forget, when he was coming out of high school before he reclassified, he was the number one player in his class of ability. So I think having another year here, very valuable for Alabama in that defensive line. And then,
if you know if he's coming back or not.
Yeah. I don't know what his decision will be. I assumed that Damani was probably coming back, but I have heard some speculation that maybe he's giving stronger consideration to leaving than what I expected. But as of right now, I don't know. I couldn't answer that definitively.
And your thoughts about this roster, and based on the future that we just don't know in regards to the House settlement, the total numbers that's going to be eligible to be on a roster, et cetera, total numbers that's going to be eligible to be on a roster, et cetera. But as we stand right now, do you anticipate that Alabama might have to go through a small purge, so to speak, by Courtney Morgan to try to get the numbers to the point to where they can go out and get some guys that they want on this roster to run their type of schemes?
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I don't know the exact numbers, and so that makes it difficult to me. But at the same time, yeah, I know they're really close there. We saw Jaron Hamilton, the wide receiver, jump in the portal. I think there's probably going to be. I would be surprised if there's not a few more, quite honestly. So we'll see there, but it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see which guys on these, some of these teams that they're just wrapping up their season, jump in the portal that might be fits for Alabama. I really think they need to get a big physical presence on the interior part of the defensive line. If not one, two, if you could. But, I know those are difficult to come by, but I really think that they need a guy like that.
Rodney, if I put the staff changes over under at 3 when it's all said and done, would you go over or would you go under?
I mean, that is a great question because I don't know. Question. That's something that's being bandied. What changes on the staff, if any, will DeBoer make? That could be coveted right now by another program somewhat. So we'll see what happens there. But I would probably, I'm going to guess, I'm going to go conservative. Are you surprised, Landrum? I would say
Shocking.
Well, Rodney, all right.
Could you imagine if I speculated the over?
Yeah.
Tighter Insider would be blowing up.
Hey, under Nick Saban, you always took the over when it came to staff changes.
Yeah, well, you had to.
Yeah, I was about to say it was a revolving door every single year. All right, Rodney. Well, I want to try to, I'll be the Bama homer here that wants to have some goodwill out there in the universe. What would be, if you have to look back on this season, I know Landrum asked you how you look at it in 10 years, but if there's one positive, what would be the main positive that you can take away from this 2024 season for Alabama moving forward?
Well, the one positive.
It ended.
That's kind of where I was thinking, but yeah.
Well, there really were some good things. I mean, obviously the performance against Georgia was outstanding. That was encouraging. I thought that obviously against the game against LSU, the performance they had then, and it's always good to beat the rival, right? And now you've got 5 in a row over Auburn. Those are some things that I think you can cling to. Obviously, look, the first year, let's just be honest about it. You guys know this. This is the most significant transition, I think, in college football in a long, long time, maybe ever. I don't know. But it's a huge task that Kalen DeBoer took over. And I really thought, just looking at it from the outside, if you go from when he got here to right at the start of the season, I would have given him a solid A for everything they did. And I'm talking about holding that team together last year, the roster, the recruiting that they did, the commitments that they got, the class that they've now put together for this year. All of those things were really well. Once the season started, you knew that there were probably going to be some bumps in the road. That happens anyway. There's so many factors involved here. So I think you said ended. Look forward and see. I think next year it's going to be really interesting to see how this team looks.
It's going to be great for talk radio and great for TighterInsider.com, right, Rodney?
I agree.
Renew those subscriptions now, folks, at TighterInsider.com. Rodney, Happy New Year. Always appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you very much. That's Rodney Orr joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. There's a lot of roofing companies out there. If you have the experience and the true desire to take care of you, like my good friends over at Abide Roofing, Travis Lloyd, call them today, 205-922 7134. Travis Lloyd, he's the guy you want to speak to. 100% recommend him and Abide Roofing. He put a new roof on my home a few years back, jumped through all the hoops with the insurance company that took care of me. Hours, it got taken care of. Best products that they're going to put on your roof, right there, indication throughout the whole process. Insured, a true pro in the industry. Get your free roof inspection today by simply calling Travis over to Abide Roofing at 205-922-7134. More of your calls, your text. This is Three Man Front Docs 94.5. We will go to Jacksonville, Florida, and talk to our good friend Brett Norsworthy, who is going to be on one of the voices of the Ole Miss Rebels radio network today as the Gator Bulls, they take on the Duke Blue Devils.
Especially coming up today at 3 o'clock, you got Notre Dame. That's over 23 feet. Think about that. High def, you're going to get optimal sound, not only the big projector screen, but also the video boards, all the TVs that they have spanning wall to wall inside of Rambler Sports Bar and Grill. It's located near Railroad Park, 2nd Avenue South, 1630 2nd Avenue South. Get in there today. You can watch both games, enjoy all the bowl action that we still have left, all the college football playoff action, college basketball with the SEC play opening. They're getting ready for the playoffs. It's Rambler Sports Bar and Grill. They're at the Phoenix, 1630 2nd Avenue South. Get in this afternoon and enjoy some high-quality college football.
Back to the phones we go. Let's go to Larry next on Three Man Front. Hey, Larry.
Hey, guys. Enjoy the show always while I'm on the road. But I want to ask you fellas a question simply from the fact that how many times did you see, and I'm just throwing it out on the table, most of the touchdowns legs. How many times did you see him throw numerous touchdown passes? I just want to just ask you guys that.
How many games he had multiple touchdown passes?
Yeah, but basically, yeah, but yeah.
Georgia.
I can tell you in 1 second. I can tell you that he had 4 games without a single touchdown pass. I do know that.
Georgia, Western Kentucky. Help me out, Conrad. Who else?
Yeah, I'm all right, here we go. All right, you have Mercer, 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, 2 touchdowns. Wisconsin, 3. USF, 2. Western Kentucky, 3. So after the Georgia win, he only had 1 game with with multiple touchdown passes, and it was Mercer.
And he also had 3 games in which he threw multiple interceptions.
Correct.
There's no question. But the thing that amazed me about Milroe is the talent that he has, not just with his legs as well as his arm. It's like anytime he was under pressure or anytime somebody came off each side of the ball, he just went into panic mode. And guys, I'm sure y'all noticed it, but I noticed it big time in the game against Michigan. Mr. Williams as well as was it Mr. Bernard, their facial expressions.
Ryan Williams was visibly frustrated multiple times. Yeah.
Oh, especially Bernard also. And sometimes, guys, I'm just want to throw it out there with having kept Saban for 17 years. The last few years after, obviously, when Mr. Smart left, I know y'all have noticed it, how our disagree, so to speak.
It has not.
I would agree.
It has not been as sharp.
Yeah.
I mean, I pulled for Milroe all year long, but I've never seen him look just so. It was like it was not even in the game against. No, it's the best or nothing with Mercedes right there in Tuscaloosa. But I don't know what to say, man. I was just speechless after that game, guys. But just wanted to put in my 2 cents.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Larry.
the show, guys.
Appreciate it, Larry. Yeah, Milroe had, so in his first 4 games of the season, 10 touchdown passes, 1 interception. The last 9 games, 6 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions.
And on top of that, you look at his rushing, and this was the stat that will go along with this season when you want to tell the story. There was only 1 game when he rushed for under 50 yards in the game in which Alabama won, and that was South Florida. He only had 2 yards rushing, but in the losses against Vanderbilt, he had 10 yards rushing. Against Tennessee, he had 11 yards rushing. Against Oklahoma, he had 7. Against Michigan, he had 7. Now, keep in mind in the college game, when you are sacked, that counts against the
Correct.
quarterback's rushing yards, unlike the NFL. It's a little bit different the way they keep the stats. So,
but Milroe also is responsible for a lot of the sacks that he takes.
No doubt.
Go to the total.
Get rid of the football.
Yards. Yep.
yeah, that was the thing that always got me, guys, is the fact that you have played quarterback now for a good amount of your adult life at the University of Alabama in the Southeastern Conference. Why has that internal clock not gotten to the point to where you need to get rid of the ball?
Well, I think it's a lot of the frustrations that we kind of heard that Nick Saban had with him as he continues to not evolve and really progress in terms of reading a field and being able to go through his progressions as a passer. And that's something that he got worse at this year, which is befuddling that at the end of last year, you saw a guy that had developed a lot from week 1 to, the college football playoff. And this year he starts off hot. And now this last 2 months of the year, he looks like a completely different player. He looks lost.
And that's all we heard leading up to the start of the season. It was, Kalen DeBoer wants Jalen Milroe to be Jalen Milroe, and he wants this offense to fit Jalen Milroe's skill set, and going over and really, fine-tuning his game and the fundamentals of playing quarterback at that level. And you thought, okay, well, looks like Jalen Milroe, he's going to turn the quarter. He's going to be even better in operating an offense. But at times he was equally as bad, and that's got to be the frustrating thing. You would rather have a guy, maybe he doesn't make as many plays if it's Ty Simpson with his legs or have those explosive performances, but if you have consistency at a place like Alabama, you got enough talent around you where you don't have to be dynamic every single game, but you can't be horrible.
One thing is for sure, he was benched after the Texas game. Do not forget about that. And based on the people that I talked to even last season, the biggest frustration Nick Saban had with Jalen Milroe was that he was not correcting his mistakes. Like what you saw at practice, it was like, okay, you made a couple of mistakes here. You need to fix that. Those issues were there the whole entire year. And that was the real frustration that Nick Saban had with Jalen Milroe. And then you saw this year, DeBoer just never pulled the trigger and removed him from the starting lineup.
Milroe played worse than 2 quarterbacks that got benched. Just think about that. Davis Warren for Michigan, he had gotten benched this year. They ran through, 3 or 4 quarterbacks this year. Underperformed, lost to him, and you lost to Jackson Arnold, who had gotten benched at Oklahoma for Michael Hawkins and then had to come back in at the end of the season. And that's the guy that finished, sixth in Heisman voting last year?
Yeah.
And you can't overperform against or outperform guys that got benched at 6-6 program.
And listen, you saw the frustration of Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams, and I think they're done with Jalen Milroe. Not saying that Jalen Milroe is coming back or thinking about coming back to Tuscaloosa, because I think the message has already been sent.
Yes.
That if you want to continue to play college football, you're just going to have to go play somewhere else. But it's not
The
going to
look
be
on
here at
Ryan
Alabama.
Williams' face after the overthrow on the sideline. I mean, that a picture is worth 1,000 words sometimes, and you could tell right there. That was the moment. That felt like the tipping point of, we got to get this dude out of here.
How bizarre will it be to start next season if Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers are both suiting up for other college programs?
I wouldn't doubt it.
I think Alabama and Texas fans would both be happy, though.
It would not shock me in the least. Ryan Williams, 3 receptions for 8 yards against that defense. And if it wasn't for Jeremy Bernard, 4 catches, 80 yards, but both guys were open all day long. Let's go to Don next here on 3-Man Front. Hey, Don, Happy New Year.
Hey, guys, how are y'all?
Good.
Interesting conversation today. And now I think Conrad, I think you Alabama guys got the Peyton Thorne disease now.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I would go that far, but it was ugly.
I think Peyton Thorne had better numbers than Jalen Milroe.
Passing, yeah.
Yeah.
Pat, that's what I was going to ask you. I think his numbers this year were better, especially passing-wise.
I was about to say Milroe just didn't have a game with 5 interceptions, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, Peyton Thorne.
It was close, Conrad.
Now Peyton Thorne only played in 11 games because you remember he was out.
He got benched.
Well, it was either benched or hurt, whatever the case may be. But he played 11 games. He finished 4th in the SEC in passing. Jalen Milroe finished 7th.
Okay. Well, roster question for next year, guys. As of right now, and this is not a slap on Alabama because they're not using the portal like we are, but we're 7th on 3, and Alabama is 64th. But one thing that you look at on that transfer portal thing is the transfers in and transfers out. Auburn's lost 18 and gotten back in 14. Alabama's lost 16 and gotten back in 5. So, Pat, if they keep the roster limit the way it is with 85, how many? Do you happen to know how many people are left on Alabama's roster?
Well, now that Burnip has declared for the NFL draft today, and he was a scholarship, although he was the punter,
yes,
but he was scholarshiped. I think Alabama currently probably has about 3 or 4 spots open as we speak on the roster, and they're looking to clear a little bit more. So I
think Auburn's at 83 as of right now. But one thing you guys got to look at on that is you're going to have another transfer portal window where you'll lose some more in the spring. So you got to work your 85 the right way. But I actually think Auburn's, and y'all might laugh at me for saying this, but as of right now, going into the next year, I think Auburn's got a better roster than Alabama does.
I
told you laugh.
No, I'm not laughing. It's probably more of a discussion than we thought it would be at this point. But by the way, Don, I saw you going into breakfast in downtown Homewood the other morning and almost honked at you, but I was afraid I was going to scare you.
Yeah, Landrum, and they all know y'all there. The part of the Jack's breakfast crew.
Okay. Well, my point was going to be that you had a crew waiting for you in the dining room that I could see from outside as I was passing by, and I'm like, golly, does he have he's got like a party of people wherever he goes.
Andrew, what do you do with your free time?
Unread.
Hey, guys, I got to give y'all credit on that, man. Y'all made me popular in town with knowing me because of y'all show. So thank y'all for that. Hey, I'm trying to do a good job as mayor, Landrum.
There you go.
You're doing it. You're doing it, man. Happy New Year, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We hope to see you and the rest of the crew at Social Taco. We'll be back there on Tuesday. More 3-Man Front here on Jocks 94.5. 3 o'clock today, kickoff between Georgia and Notre Dame. We're going to go to New Orleans and talk to our main man, Mike Griffith from Dog Nation and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He is there in New Orleans getting ready for the game today at 3 o'clock. We will talk to Mike coming up at the top of the hour.
How about a fire pit, landscape steps, garden walls, stone patios, walkways, custom driveways? Well, our friends at Second Generation Masonry, a great Alabama-based company, they're the team for beautifying any area. You can take your outdoor living area to the next level. Check out Second Generation Masonry. Go to secondgenerationmasonry.com. Get the free quote today. They specialize in not only residential but also commercial construction here in the state of Alabama. When you go to that website at secondgenerationmasonry.com, you're going to see some of those completed projects. It's just a wonderful company that you can trust to come to your home, your place of business, and do absolutely outstanding work. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend them. SecondGenerationMasonry.com. Get the free quote today and make sure you tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
Back to the phones we go, 1-800-239-WJOX. Let's go to Oxford and talk to Danny. Hey, Danny, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys. Great conversation this morning. I was one of those that went into this season cautiously optimistic, hoping that Milroe would have learned a lot from last year because we knew who he was last year. And I've never seen a quarterback that could go from hot to not, like he does. We had a stretch of years as Alabama fans that we had quarterbacks that were labeled as game managers.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of us this year would have took a game manager, somebody that's not going to kill you with turnovers, but yet he may not have the dual threat that Milroe's talent gives him to be.
Where's Jay Coker when you need him?
Yeah, Coker and even McElroy, and different ones that were they could read a defense, from the line of scrimmage and make up maybe for not being as athletic with some game knowledge. But I'll say this before I hang up. One thing that sums up Milroe to me is I was at the watching them warm up, and when Alabama runs out on, they will go to the end zone at the far end and take a knee and pray, and then go back to the Milroe comes down by himself after everybody else has done it. To knee and prays, and then he gets up and makes some gesture to the crowd and the students to try to. And to me, that sums up a lot of Milroe. Games when he played fantastic. Someone mentioned it earlier. But life has a way of humbling you when you do that. But anyway, I enjoyed the discussion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very much. One thing's for sure, the Alabama defense, they came to play yesterday, because if it had not been for the defense that was keeping Michigan out of the end zone except for that one touchdown, making them kick field goals, this game could have been like the Ohio State-Oregon game. I mean, it could have gotten that bad real early. Alabama had -2 yards of offense in the first quarter, but the defense played very, very well. The Wolverines managed 81 yards of offense in the second half. That's it, 81 yards. So the Alabama defense played well. Matter of fact, the Tide only allowed 2.9 yards per play for the game. That's 66 total plays against the Alabama defense, and Michigan only averaged 2.3 yards rushing per attempt.
But like the Vanderbilt game, Michigan had the ball for 38 minutes, Alabama only 21 minutes and some change.
Yep. And on top of that, you had Michigan go 4 for 4 when they got in the red zone. So they walked away with points regardless.
Both teams were absolutely disgusting on third down.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
Not great
at all. So the Tide finishes with a 9-4 record that ends the 16-year streak that Nick Saban had started at Alabama. That was the longest in college football history. So an end of an era and possibly the dynasty.
Hey guys. So, I don't understand how, you go fumble, interception, and after the interception, you're thinking, we need to keep this guy in at quarterback. And, Helen Keller could have called a better game than this. And, the offensive coordinator needs to learn time management, because with 6 minutes left in the game, you don't start substituting people in every other 2 plays. You run a NASCAR. The defense we need. We're not in an Ivory Club eating stadium dogs. I mean, I understand. You got a new coaching staff. You had a lot of players leave. I understand the situation that you're going into, but you got to have common sense. You got to look at a clock and determine, hey, we got this much time, and we can come down and go and defense kind of plays, all right and stuff like that. We can hold them. We can do this. We can do that. But it was like, nobody had any common sense in this ball game.
Well, one thing's for sure, I don't think Jalen Milroe wants to see anything from the state of Michigan anytime soon, because he started 2024 with that horrible play at the end of the overtime, and then he ends the 2024 calendar year, obviously, with a
don't forget the fumble in the fourth quarter of the Rose Bowl.
I've got the perfect transfer destination for him, Michigan State.
Well, I hate this for Molly, because if he goes to Detroit, that would just kill them too. But let him go to Green Bay and let him lose there to Detroit. I mean, Jesus. I mean, I could have played quarterback better than that. I mean, you have 6 minutes left. The defense they're running a bubble defense, a prevent defense. You have 6 yards that you can just run. You want to run all the time? Run. There's your 6 yards right there. Go down the field and run. But no, you want to throw 6 yards behind Bernard. You want to throw to Ryan Williams and knock him out of bounds. That's why we lose a 6'5" receiver, because you don't throw to him. Just stupid idiot stuff.
Appreciate the call, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that very much. Let's go to BB next here on Three Man Front. Hey, BB, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you folks. That was the most painful football game I have seen in a long time. I actually had a thought there for a minute whether or not Conrad was there in person.
BB, I had a lot of people asking me if I was in attendance, and kudos to Alabama. They poo-pooed the bed without me in attendance.
I just had flashbacks of Mikey Boy Shula days. It just hurt. It hurt. And but a couple of quick points, and then I have an idea I just want to throw out there. I thought Arizona got screwed with that non-call, and I'm Ohio born and bred. Not a big Ohio State fan, but I have to say they were awesome yesterday. Incredible game. But I'm kind of a big picture person. I don't really get into the weeds with a lot of stuff. And I think we have to all kind of take a step back, and we're all about Alabama today with our anxiety. But with the transfer portal and NIL, and we knew this was going to happen, aside from a whole lot of people out there in this college football that are thinking, what in the world are we going to be doing next year? What in the world are we going to have anything? What about the coaching staff? To be one of the most tumultuous 6-8 months going forward till we get to who's in the lineup for anything. And I just think college football, it's shot itself in the foot, and we've lost the glory days, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, it's definitely changed.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thanks,
I look forward to seeing you all, and Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you,
Happy
BB.
New Year, BB.
Thank you. And BB was just talking about this. Consider this. As of this moment, 2,031 football players have gone into the transfer portal since December. That is an increase of 39% over last December. There was 1,200 that went into the transfer portal in 2023. Right now it stands at 2,031 players. And it will be more because everyone that is done with the bowl season, you got 5 days. So Alabama and Michigan players, they've got, 4 more days to get their paperwork in. The teams that were eliminated in the college football playoff, you will have 5 more days. If you play in the national championship game, you got until January the 25th to declare what you want to do. So the transfer portal is definitely going to continue to be something that we will talk about every single day on this program. Let's go to Chris, who is next on Three Man Front. Hey, Chris.
Good afternoon, guys, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Hey, Happy New Year, Chris.
Roll Tide, baby.
Roll Tide.
Always. There you go, Conrad. I guess I'm not going to be the doom and gloom crowd today, because again, Conrad, let's role play. You be the Bama faithful, and I be me.
Oh boy, here we go.
Interesting choice of words there, Chris.
Yeah, here we go.
But okay,
yes.
Continue.
Yes. So, what have I been telling the Bama faithful when it comes to expectations for this team?
What, that they had to figure out what their own standard was?
Yes, and taper your expectations. Did I not say that throughout the whole season?
You did?
Did we still manage to put our homework glasses on and think it's either playoffs or bust?
Well, I think more so with that, it's the teams that you lost to. It's not the fact, if Alabama loses to Georgia, Tennessee, and I don't know, LSU at the end of the year, I think you look at it differently than losing to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma.
I already said that Vanderbilt was going to be a threat. Oklahoma game, didn't see that come. The Tennessee game, that one hurt the most because you had that game won.
Yeah.
And Tennessee pretty much started off by gift wrapping you that game, and the offense pretty much been the offense how it is. Even Pat's called the offense themselves this kind of Frankensteinish offense, right?
Yes.
So we can't be all fire the coaches and sure, Jalen had his worst game of his career by far, but it also, but you have to with this program, we have to get, like I said, you establish a new standard though. We can't go based off what we have in the past, thought of Bama's been in the past, or compare it off of, because guess what? New coach, new regime, and a prime example. We had numerous penalties this year. I'm thinking that I mentioned the Kendrick Law penalty, or how about this? We ever been called for a sideline penalty?
I will say in the Michigan game, that was a weird call.
No. Even better. Even here better. He's one even better. So Ryan off commercial break. Ryan Williams get hits. Do we do that compared to what we've been? I guess this is the new standard. We need to figure out what we are.
Well, to be fair, Chris, the last 2 years under Nick Saban was probably two of the worst penalized Alabama football teams.
Yeah, they were not disciplined
in recent memory. So it has been a.
So it's like this. It's the same like this. Like it ain't like you can also say along with that we haven't been world beaters like in the games we played. But one thing for sure is like we had an identity of like, right? So first we got to let him get in and figure out who we are, instead of just saying what we done is going to define us.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Chris. I appreciate you calling in. I'm glad that there's some Alabama fans that are a little more optimistic. The rest of us are pretty down in the dumps.
Well, you don't want to get caught in your system checkup now from a Train comfort specialist. Train has been recognized for 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive at Jocks. So visit train.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
So was it targeting? Was it not targeting? Man, the social media world is going crazy saying Texas and the SEC got the nod again over a controversial call. We'll get into that next on Three Man Front. 11:52, Jocks 94.5. We will continue with your phone calls. The text line brought to you by Courtesy GMC, 205-834-9450.
It is a new year. How about a new you or an upgraded you? You can do that at Mandu in downtown Homewood. Mandu is electrical muscle stimulation fitness. If you've never heard me describe it in layman's terms, this is what happens. You go into Mandu. They put you into a specially designed suit. They hook you up to a machine that sends electric pulses to various parts of your body. Muscle groups are attacked, different areas may be problematic. Well, you're going to get results. The best part about Mandu, and because of that technology, it's a 15-minute workout. 15 minutes, you're going to get results equivalent to 6 to 8 hours in the gym. Mandu in downtown Homewood. Great staff. Paul and his team do a wonderful job. MANDUU.com. That is Mandu, and make sure you tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
Wow, there was controversy yesterday in the quarterfinal in Atlanta at the Peach Bowl. Was it targeting? Was it not targeting? This is what SVP and Dusty Dvorak had to say on ESPN.
That's targeting 100 times out of 100. It wasn't in this case.
All right, we'll try that again in a second. As Molly screams at the computer.
All that being said, it was targeting, right?
I mean, I thought it was.
I think we're all in agreement.
All right.
Happy New Year, Molly.
Yeah, here we go. back to the audio. I wish the camera would have caught what she just did towards
That's
the computer.
targeting 100 times out of 100. It wasn't in this case. What'd you see? What'd you think?
I thought it was targeting. I thought it was targeting in the moment. I picked up the phone. I made a few phone calls. I talked to Bill Lamagna, who I think is one of the absolute best, works for us. It's an offenseless player. There was an upward thrust indicator, forcible contact to the head or neck area. They go to, we heard Matt Austin on the call. He thought it was targeting. We go through these seminars and before the season as analysts that call games, and we're always looking at different plays. That looked to me to be the letter of the law, targeting.
There you go. And I think we all agree on this show, Landrum, that
Yes.
To us, it was targeting. And it was, because as soon as it happened, I said, oh, they're in field goal range now.
Oh, yeah.
Even with their bad field goal kicker. I was like,
They should let Scattaboo try to kick it.
might as well. He did everything else on the day. That was very interesting to say the very least.
Scattaboo. Who wouldn't love to have just a bunch of Scataboos on their team?
My goodness, you'd go undefeated for sure. Gene Steratore, who you will hear on CBS broadcasts, he tweeted out just a few moments ago that it was absolutely targeting, in his opinion, and it was a missed call. So Arizona State goes home. Texas and the SEC catches another check because if you advance to the next round, the conference gets another $6 million. So that no targeting call got the SEC $6 million more. That will be distributed at Destin.
That's wonderful. I do feel bad for Arizona State, though, just the way that they came back in that game. And for it to come down to a situation like that, and I know there were people on social media, a game should never end that way. I mean, I think we remember the Super Bowl a couple years ago where you had the holding call, and that kind of sealed it for the Chiefs. And I understand nobody wants a game to be decided because of a penalty, but you also can't change the rules of football because of the situation. The rules at kickoff should be the same rules with 30 seconds left in a tie game in the fourth quarter. And it just kind of felt like maybe there was an exception made.
Of all of the targetings that we've gotten, or the non-targetings that we've had over the course of this season and in prior seasons, for it not to be called there in a pivotal point of a game, of a college football playoff game, it's so frustrating.
Do you think it was a makeup call because the non-call on Isaiah Bond?
No, because I didn't think that was targeting because he hit him with his shoulder. And it was like trying to make a play on the ball. On the interception?
But based on the conversations during the broadcast, because the way Matt Austin was talking about the way he launched the second player, not the one that was going for the interception, but the other one, the way he launched himself towards the head and neck area, that could have warranted a call.
It was Isaiah Bond.
Hey, he caught the Gravedigger play.
Yeah, and it went straight to his head, didn't it?
Paid not to play.
Right. I believe their tight end led them in receiving yards this year.
Was that Billingsley?
No, it's not Black.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
Is Agiye Hall still there?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
All right, we're going to go to New Orleans next. Mike Griffith from the AJC. He'll join us here on Three Man Front. It is 12 noon here on Jocks 94.5. A reminder that you can hear the Sugar Bowl coming up at 3 o'clock right here on Jocks 94.5. Our good friend Mike Griffith covers the SEC and the Georgia Bulldogs for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and DogNation.com. He joins us now on Three-Man Front. And Mike, it goes without saying that these are troubled times, to say the very least, when a terrorist event happens at any point in time, and it happens in New Orleans, Louisiana. And so now trying to get back to a little bit of normalcy, we're going to try to play.
Oh, I think it's a tremendous distraction, and these teams have both had to, kind of audible on their pregame, and we know that coaches are kind of a creature of habit, and, these kids get into a routine. There's a lot of distraction. I'm sure there was some concern for, their loved ones, that were out on Bourbon Street or in that area. I'm sure, by now everyone's, kind of taking account of family members, and, but it can't help but distract you. I mean, to your point, larger than life, when these things strike, it puts things into perspective. And, anytime you're in a big crowded environment like that, this is why, we do our best to take precautions and have the security in place that we do. And yet still, some of this madness, finds us in just tragic form. I flew back yesterday and noted all the, the heightened security, and, kind of always, remind myself when I go through that, as much of an inconvenience as it might seem at the time, for those of us that travel and do this for a living, I kind of appreciate it, and, appreciate that the folks in our, police forces and our security forces and our TSA, even recognize their importance. So certainly a sobering note, to start with. And like you said, the games go on, and people will look to, find some peace and entertainment, watching football, something that we all love, but, with heavy hearts today.
So, Mike, with you being down there yesterday, I'm just kind of curious if you could maybe set the scene of, if you're around, a lot of the Georgia fans. I know a lot of them were in hotel bars watching some of the playoff games and trying to find kind of that camaraderie and kind of escape from what was going on the streets of New Orleans. So I'm just curious, kind of, if you could set the scene for us yesterday morning, being there in New Orleans, what was it like? And when you were on your way out, did you see maybe a large contingent of Georgia or Notre Dame fans that were also leaving early and decided, hey, the game's not worth it, let's get back home safely? Or did it seem like most of the fans were staying put and just, kind of staying in place at their hotels?
I mean, the ones I ran across, most people were staying in place. There were some people that had been evacuated from their hotels that were in the immediate area, that were headed home a little bit early. Most people were coming in. Actually, when I went to the airport, and yesterday morning going out, gosh, I feel kind of naive now. I kind of went out and ventured around the perimeter, and I took some pictures and video for our news team to share with them, and not even thinking or realizing that the danger might still exist. And lo and behold, you find out that there were some other things found around that area that had yet to be detonated, or and who knows what else the authorities are finding right now. Again, it's one of those tip of the iceberg things. You don't know what you don't know. And I think to myself, gosh, the whole time I was down there, and I don't really go out at night. For me, it's kind of a business trip, and I try to, get back to my room early and make sure I'm rested for these events, and, do my work and things like that. I go out during the daytime, but even then, you think about the number of people on the streets, and, could it have been December 31st? Could it have been December 30th? Could it have been the 29th? So random. That you kind of look back and go, wow, there was potential for peril the whole time, that conglomeration of people were down there, and prayers that, that the dangers, diminished or eliminated at this point. I mean, certainly I don't think they'd be holding this game if they thought that there was, any risk to the fans. I wouldn't think so. I've been to that Superdome enough times. I think you all have too, that The security is awful tight there. Probably I'd compare it to, what the security was for the Alabama-Georgia game when President-elect Trump was going to make that visit. They really doubled down on that security. And again, I know a lot of people thought that was an inconvenience, but at the time, I guess you see now the value and appreciate those sort of things. I guess to me that'd be a lasting impression in addition to the, sympathy we should all feel, for the people affected, but the appreciate the people in the security services, the jobs that they. Again, it might seem like an inconvenience, clear plastic and, metal detectors, but, get them more now than ever and be as cooperative and pleasant as you can be to those folks. And yet, man, we really see the value of kind of get off my soapbox here as the old guy. You go back to 9/11 and you remember the change in airport security and you remember appreciating it. And, these moments are reminders for us and maybe how, we should support these sort of folks and how cooperative we ought to be.
Mike Griffith joins us from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, covers the Southeastern Conference, also the Georgia Bulldogs for DogNation.com. So yesterday, Notre Dame, they stay in their hotel. That was the reports we got all day long. They had a team meeting. They had other things. They actually had a team run around the hotel. Meanwhile, reports are that the Bulldogs had an opportunity to get off-site and go to the Saints training facility to at least do a walkthrough. Is that your best understanding of what Kirby was able to do yesterday with this football team?
Yeah, that, getting back to football talk now, and again, I certainly don't mean to diminish the importance of everything else going down there, but when we talk about the game, you can't help but notice the trend that the teams that had a bye have all fallen behind quickly and all trailed at halftime and ultimately lost. And Georgia's been a slow starting team too. I don't need to tell people that in Alabama. You saw the first half of that game in Tuscaloosa following a bye week, right? And you go back to Georgia's opener against Clemson, they didn't score a touchdown in the first half. I think they scored one touchdown against Alabama in the first half and trailed badly. And then coming off a bye week at Florida, I don't believe they scored a touchdown either. And Georgia did trail six times at halftime of games this year. So this is a team that's had an issue with slow starts, and then you put on top of it the layoff and the rust. I mean, I think, those of us that watched the Oregon-Ohio State game, that wasn't the same Oregon, that went 13-0. And there's a lot to be said for that. I've done a couple stories on it already, but, the bowl season is its own season. And I guess I'll just transition right into this message. These people, some of these media people have lost their minds. I don't want to call them names. I'm not going to call them idiots or fools or, misled folks that don't understand the game. But, you can't base that Alabama game and say, oh, well, look at that. Michigan was a better team. Or, oh, gee, South Carolina lost to Illinois. There you go. That just proves everything. It doesn't prove anything. It's a different season. Bowl season is unto itself. And over the years, you look at the playoff records, for example, when everybody's all in, because non-playoff games now are completely different. A lot of these kids are opting out. Coaches looking for their next job. You're recruiting now with the portal, and a lot more resources go into that. Coaches are playing guys that can be a part of the plan for next year. A lot of the practices are geared more towards development than the game. And sure, you want to see your team win, but it's not the same. It's not the same as a playoff game. And if you look at playoff games, the SEC's 14-4 since the start of the playoff in 2014 season when they play teams from another conference. I guess they're 16-6 overall, but that's what teams from the league playing one another. But 14-4, and they've been the dominant conference, and they've been the dominant conference in the draft, and with the most number of players drafted the last 19 years. So, these guys with hot takes that ought to know better, that are, basically, I guess, trying to appease the crowd. Oh, look, well, maybe the playoff committee had it right after all. Maybe Indiana and SMU were better than Ole Miss and South Carolina. To me, it's ridiculous. It's foolish. And, I watched the Alabama game just like you all did. I mean, they played in a typhoon. They had some tough breaks early, and they weren't the same team. And, it is what it is. I mean, Michigan, finished the year strong. Give Michigan credit. They're trying to salvage a season. They're trying to prove something. They've beaten Ohio State. They're still playing for the brand. Coaches, they're still coaching for their job. That they're playing with a different mindset than a lot of these Alabama kids that were disappointed not to make the playoff. Same goes for South Carolina. I witnessed this firsthand in 2018 when Georgia got left out of the playoff in favor of an Oklahoma team that I think was trailing Alabama 28-0 through 16 minutes. Georgia didn't want to be there. I mean, some kids are, collectively, it wasn't the same Georgia team that I watched battle Alabama in that SEC championship game and lose by a touchdown. So it's not the same team. It's not the same mindset. You don't base your season on a non-playoff bowl game. You just don't. I mean, for the fans, it's one final chance to see your team, and you hope for the best, and there's program pride and things like that. But that's not the same Alabama that you saw play Georgia in September, certainly, or even finish the year out with a win over Auburn. And it wasn't the same South Carolina team that won their last 6 games in a row. I do wonder if Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin kind of rally the troops and say, hey, everybody's saying our league's getting their ass kicked. Let's send a message. I don't know if that's enough to rally the troops or eliminate distractions. I don't think it really affects Georgia too much. I think playoff games are different animals. I don't think Texas has been a very tough team all year. I don't put a whole lot of stock in their performance. I think Texas is soft. I'll just say it. It's a soft team. I watched Georgia beat them twice. They're just not very tough. They should have lost that game, and Sark didn't do a very good job. I'm not even sure they have the best quarterback on the field right now. So that's Texas, and I don't know if I'm really ready to give them their SEC stripes quite yet. Let's face it, they got handed a ridiculously easy league slate. So I'm not on board with this. SEC isn't good, and all this has changed. I will say that the Ohio State looks dominant, but they look dominant with Caleb Downs. They look dominant. If I'm not mistaken, there's a couple other Alabama guys on their team. I think they're quarterbacks from Kansas State. I think they did a great job spending money on the portal. It took them a while to get it together. The loss and united that team. They couldn't put it together. I saw an Ohio State team like that 2 years ago that Georgia played in the Peach. But they hit on Harrison, and the other Ohio State guy, said he was too hurt to play or whatever. So I don't put a whole lot of stock. I think the SEC right now is maybe 7-5, 7-6 in bowls. But I don't put a whole lot of stock in bowl season when it comes to evaluating programs any more than I would tell Ohio State, that their program was trash last year because Missouri beat them in a bowl because they were missing 5 or 6 games, right? 5 or 6 players.
No, that's a fair point, Mike. Okay. So with all that being said, and you kind of talking about, bowl season being different and certainly not going to be a lack of motivation going into a quarterfinal game in the playoff for Georgia, but this is their first game in almost 4 weeks. You talked about the rust. You're going to have a different quarterback now with Gunnar Stockton under center. So with this game kicking off in just under 3 hours, what is your confidence level in Georgia going into this game against Notre Dame?
I mean, they're playing a third string, looking at a third string guy that I never thought would even get on the field. He played heroically in the second half against Texas, but again, Texas, soft. I'm not even sure they were among the 3 best teams in the league. In fact, I don't think they were. I think Ole Miss was better than Texas. I think South Carolina was better than Texas, and I think Alabama was better than Texas. Again, good Alabama, right? We know there were some inconsistencies with the Tide this year, as there often is when you've got a first-year coach and you've lost a lot of your marquee guys to the portal. I think one of those Alabama receivers is still lining up for Texas right now that was pretty good. He probably would have made a difference. I'd say Caleb Downs would have made a pretty big difference too. Still don't think Saban did him any favors with the timing. Don't think the transition was as easy as it was supposed to be. And whatever happened with Nick being there to help him out when they needed it, what a load of crock that was to appease people. So I think Kalen DeBoer got dealt a pretty difficult hand. Everybody still shoots for Alabama. They're still viewed as the standard in the league. I'd say Georgia in the same sentence. I think those 2 programs set the tone in the league, and I think Alabama and Georgia get a different game from everybody. than other teams in the league because of the stature of those programs and what a win over Alabama or Georgia means to a program. It changes a program. It gets coaches big raises. It gets guys new jobs. It's film that NFL people are going to turn on. So I don't think that's Texas. And, I know Texas is playing in the Cotton Bowl at home against Ohio State, but I ain't picking the Longhorns. Are you kidding me? They should have lost to, mediocre Big 12. I mean, I think the whole Big 12 is mediocre, but Arizona State, who didn't want to see them win with the passion that they played with and the job that, Kenny did coaching that team. But you're asking me about this game. It's a rock fight. They both got home run hitting backs. Jeremiah Love is incredible. He's an SEC caliber player that ended up at Notre Dame, kid from St. Louis, former 100 meters champ. You saw against Indiana when he went 98 yards and turned a corner. It's going to be a task to keep him bottled up. Riley Leonard, the Duke transfer quarterback, got better as the year progressed. He knows their offense a lot better. Den Brock's an outstanding offensive coordinator, coached up Jaden Daniels to a Heisman Trophy. They got really good coaches. Marcus Freeman was an outstanding coordinator in his own right at Cincinnati. So they're going to be coached up. They're going to be assignment sound. Both teams missing key guys. Obviously, Carson Beck is out. Anybody that tries to tell you that Georgia's better without him is, it's wishful thinking. And meanwhile, Notre Dame lost their, fifth-year senior D tackle that led him in sacks. Riley Mills was an inspirational leader. So both of these teams are, have been weakened by injury. Notre Dame did play more recently. They had the benefit of not having to play a conference championship game, so they still had a bye. They kind of had the best of both worlds. They didn't have to play a conference championship game when Georgia did, and yet they played the more recent game too. So both teams have the same amount of mileage on them game-wise. You wonder about the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame's very sound. They've won, 11 games in a row. There's a lot of momentum there, a lot of confidence there for the Irish. You see the odds makers have kind of flipped. Notre Dame was originally a 1-point favorite. Then Georgia got up to as much as a 2-point favorite. And then I guess the planes landed and everybody started betting in New Orleans. And now Notre Dame's back up to a 1-point favorite in that game. I think it's a game that Georgia should win. But again, you've got Gunner making his very first start. He came in at halftime and Texas didn't really make very good adjustments. I think their coaching staff, I think I've already alluded to the fact I don't think their coaching staff is the best. They were slow to adjust to Gunner. This Notre Dame team has had a lot of time to prepare for Gunner, and they see a lot of what he does in practice every week with Riley Leonard. Conversely, Georgia now with all this prep with Gunner has seen a little bit more of what Notre Dame's going to do with Riley Leonard. Georgia Tech was very similar to this. And I ain't trying to stop Jalen Milroe, but this guy does have mobility. So I think these teams mirror one another, especially standing kicker that hasn't missed from 50 yards in. The Notre Dame kicker had his struggles. Georgia's got a first-time punter. This guy hasn't punted in a game yet. I think he's a former I don't know if there are punter 4 or 5 stars, but he was a great recruit. But until you do it under the lights, you don't know about that. So that's an intangible as well. So kind of a little bit of question for both of these teams. Notre Dame with the better quarterback. Riley Leonard's played a action. Love and ETN kind of cancel each other out. I think this is going to come down, and that's why I favor Georgia, because they've been in this arena before, and to handle change and some of the chaos that surrounded the preparation for this game.
That is Mike Griffith. Outstanding job covering the Southeastern Conference and, of course, the Georgia Bulldogs for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Dog Nation. Mike, Happy New Year. We'll catch up with you Tuesday, and we will go from there. Have a good one, brother.
All right. Don't bite on them. Don't bite on those Twitter people trying to tell you that the SEC, they're looking for clicks, folks. The SEC ain't going nowhere. I appreciate it, guys.
They're fine. Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much. Happy New Year. That is Mike Griffith joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. It's also a perfect time to upgrade to a vehicle you can truly rely on. The selection of top-rated and dependable vehicles at Courtesy GMC and Trussville gives you plenty of options, from the Yukon XL, the Sierra trucks, the Canyon trucks, the Acadia, and the Terrains. There's a sports utility, truck, or crossover for whatever your life calls for. Don't drive anywhere else. Just drive to Trussville and save big on your next vehicle Courtesy Vehicles can offer. Located in Trussville on exit 32 next to Lowe's on Edwards Lake and Torrey, and more deals at courtesybirmingham.com. More of your calls, your texts as well on the Courtesy GMC text line. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Always appreciate Mike Griffith joining us. Bulldogs will be the second Southeastern Conference for 1-800-239-WJOX. The Courtesy GMC text line is open at 205-834-9450. He was just talking about all this shade, Landrum, that's been thrown towards the SEC, and that we shouldn't really consider the bowl or the college football playoff to throw shade at a particular conference. You agree or disagree with that?
I think it depends. In this particular case, I don't think it's fair to throw shade. You don't know, especially this day and age, where's the buy-in with some of these guys. I don't know how stoked that South Carolina playing against an Illinois team, they were in a bowl game. But it's still your job as a player. It's still your coaching staff's job to try the best they can to get you to buy in. But no, I think that sometimes we are very quick to react and project just based on what we saw for 60 minutes of regulation. But no, I don't think that this is a sign that the entire SEC as a conference is about to take a backseat to anyone. That's
how many
ridiculous.
Big Ten teams are in the playoffs right now?
Yeah.
And how many SEC teams? I think the same.
Well, I mean,
amount.
it's so in the moment anyways. And if this year didn't teach us anything in college football, not only SEC, but think about what we were talking about with Ryan Day and Ohio State.
Yeah.
2 games ago.
Mm-hmm.
after a disappointing loss. Now, I know what Ross Bjork said, Ohio State athletic director. He's coaching for his job, and then they have an unbelievable performance against Tennessee, and then what we saw. But just as soon as we say that, you could have Texas in the semifinal, and then Georgia make an emphatic statement today over a Notre Dame team that I think is pretty dang good, and I think it's going to be a whale of a game.
Matter of fact, Vegas, Texas is now down to a 5-point underdog. So the line has moved over a point and a half over the last 16 hours or so. Speaking of bragging, so you had Illinois knocking off South Carolina 21-17, and we're going to spend some time later on in the show talking about the kerfuffle that went on between Bielema and Shane Beamer. But Luke Altmaier, remember Luke?
Former Rebel.
Ran the practice squad over there for Lane Kiffin. Couldn't handle it in Oxford, so he goes to Champaign-Urbana, which I can promise you, if you've never been to Champaign-Urbana, it is definitely not Tempe, Arizona.
What's the girl to guy ratio?
You will not be confused at where you're at. I promise you.
No lazy river.
No. But Luke Altmaier had this to say about his former brethren in the Southeastern Conference.
It's Big Ten ball. Been hearing all this talk about SEC, getting the playoff, things like that, and just tired of the disrespect. I think Illinois has been, a disrespected program for a long time. I know that because I lived in that area and in that conference, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I remember a couple of days ago we were at the Fun Spot doing a team activity with the other team, and they were calling us Syracuse, and they didn't even know who we were playing. So, not that we needed any extra motivation, but that was all we needed to hear, and we gave them that Big Ten belt.
All right. Well, Luke, respect is earned. It's not given. And the reason that Illinois has been disrespected, quoting you, for so many years is because they've absolutely sucked.
Well, I just like to think that they were sitting around the locker room in Oxford and going, you know who I really hate? Alabama. Illinois. Can't stand them.
I love that, though.
Does anybody...
Just random people at the bowl spot. They're like, yeah, who are you guys with?
Well, to be fair, if you turn on a tape, the uniforms, the helmet, the whole thing, they looked extremely similar.
Do you like the cursive Illinois on the helmet?
It was fine. See, I'm the geek that I have a problem with the different font on your helmet that's painted in the end zone. It's just like pick one.
Oh, I got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the Illinois in the end zone was not the same Illinois that they had on their helmet, because the word mark that they had in the end zone is what Illinois goes by all the time.
Well,
and they throw the Illinois. It's just like Baylor putting what they had on their helmet against LSU. That's just,
Of the three helmets, so we have Jeff George Illinois helmet, which was more of the New York Football Giants font.
Yes.
With that Illinois just going across in block letters. Then you have the cursive, and then you have the gigantic I. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of any of those, but
I think one time, and I'm not sounding like I know the history of Illinois' football helmets, but I think they had Chief Illini on the side of their helmet at one juncture, which that was actually a pretty good look.
That's a cool one.
That was a pretty good look.
You're not getting away with that north of the Mason-Dixon line these days.
Probably not. But so, yeah, Luke Altmaier throwing some shade, taking that Big Ten belt. That's what he said. Taking the Big Ten belt to that old SEC backside.
Well, in the last 20 years, Illinois' football program is 97-131.
Powerhouse.
Exactly. Earned.
Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah. Get into the whole back and forth between Beamer and TV. It was TV. It was fantastic.
It was great.
Loved it. We're going to go to Jacksonville, Florida. Fantastic.
It was great.
Loved it. We're going to go to Jacksonville, Florida next. The Southern Gentleman, our good friend Brett Norsworthy from the Ole Miss Radio Network. He will join us. Give us a preview of tonight's that was pushed back 35 minutes. It now will be kicking off at 7:05 there in Jacksonville at the Gator Bowl. That's next on 3 Man Front. on the Ole Miss Radio Network. Brett, Happy New Year. Hope all is well in Duval.
Happy New Year, Pat, to you and all your great listeners. It is going well. I came to the Gator Bowl, and the Liberty Bowl broke out. The weather's going to be cool tonight.
Oh, really? What's the weather forecast? That might change my line of thinking for entertainment purposes.
I have about 50. By the end of the fourth quarter, it's going to be cold in the stadium, but it's been really nice up until now, and I think Ole Miss is plenty ready to play. Ole Miss is mostly all in, especially at quarterback with Jackson Dart, and Duke is not. Duke with a quarterback that threw one pass this year that's starting tonight, had one start last year against NC State, and their backup quarterback, if he has to go in, he started last year at Middlebury College.
Middlebury College. I'm not even aware of where that school is.
It's in the middle of a berry.
I don't have much on Middlebury either.
Hey, before Landrum starts talking ball with you, I do want to get your thoughts on Luke Altmyer, because he threw some shade at the SEC after their dominating performance against South Carolina. Whatever happened to Luke at Ole Miss? Was he ever given like a legitimate shot and he just didn't pan out, or did he hit the road as the first opportunity came to him?
Remember, Dart started opening day and then against Troy, against John Summerall, and Ole Miss won 17-7 or so. And then the next week, Luke Altmyer got the start, and he got to play a lot in the opening game. He got the start, and then it started the consecutive start streak, and Luke Dart, or Jackson Dart rather, shattering the Ole Miss record book at the quarterback position. He got a full shot, great youngster from a great family. His dad, a renowned orthopedist in Starkville, and for a long time was associated with the Mississippi State team as the team doctor. Good people. He's talking a little smack now. The victors get to talk, though. Illinois won.
Brett, and it's tough and I know it's tough for you to gauge because you can't get inside the minds of 18 to 23, 24-year-olds, but just based on people that you've talked to, what has been the selling point of this Ole Miss coaching staff and maybe translating into the buy-in with these players and playing in a matchup that it's for bragging rights and it's for win number 10, but where is that incentive for Ole Miss as you see it?
One last time together, a time together that we all thought and expected and are heartbroken that's not in the playoffs, that's not still alive in the playoffs. And I watched these games, and I think on the good Ole Miss day, we very much could be alive, and that good day certainly was against Georgia. But on the bad days, that's what cost us go out back-to-back wins, 21-5 over these last 2 years, and the best 4-year run for Ole Miss football. Vaught did it, in the early 60s to win that many games. And for Coach Kiffin, this would be win tonight, be 39 wins in 4 years. And, that's easy. Thing that we had just not been accustomed to at all at Ole Miss. It has been so much fun the last 4 years, and he wants to go out the right way with Dart and company, and a lot of players that have been here, 1 or 2 years, and then some that just came in this year, and the opt-outs haven't been that severe for Ole Miss, much more severe for Duke losing Malik Murphy.
So, Brett, does the fate of the SEC lie in Ole Miss's hands today? Because kind of based on national media members after, Alabama, how they looked against Michigan, we talked about South Carolina losing to Illinois. There's just been a lot of ill will out there towards the SEC, and Lane Kiffin has obviously been very outspoken about the playoff selection and how he thought that Ole Miss or one of the other SEC teams should have gotten in. So how much pressure is on Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss today to salvage the SEC bowl season?
Conrad, this goes to prove once again, I think the biggest, fairest knock on the SEC is this. We're not perfect. We don't bat 1,000. We never said we would. Nobody can. But that's what the rest of the world kind of holds us up to. And I think at times we kind of hold ourselves up to it as wanting to bat 1,000. The other day, and I really do like Dave Pasch as a guy, the very little I've ever been around him. He wouldn't know I'm alive, but he's been nice to me on occasion in the press box. But I heard him in that Alabama last drive that we all thought Bama would score, win the game 20-19. At that time, the SEC was 5-3 in bowl games and looked like they were on the march to go to 6-3. They didn't. We understand that. I'm not making any excuses. But he made this comment during the telecast. He said, boy, it's been a rough bowl season for the SEC. Most people would trade. I think now we're, 7-5, got a chance to win the Ole Miss game tonight. There's a lot of ifs and shouldas and couldas in here, and I'm not much for that flowery little kid lingo, and that's what it is when you start talking ifs and shoulda and coulda. It's the talk of a loser, and I'm not much on that. But if Ole Miss wins tonight, Georgia wins tonight, Georgia and Texas just split, and then somebody end up winning it all. That's a bad bowl season. I think most people would trade for that.
Well, if Georgia wins tonight, the SEC and Big Ten so far this year, so not bad company.
Yeah, we got a lot of people really spiking the flag, if you will. Okay, we've had some stumbles. We know that, but it's terrible. I know this. And every single Arkansas fan I encountered, I swear they were happier over Ole Miss not being in the playoffs than anything they've done in the last few years in football. And I told one, y'all should hang a banner. 2024, Ole Miss didn't go to the playoffs, and in parentheses, we won the Liberty Bowl.
Brett Norsworthy joins us live from the Gator Bowl. He'll be on the radio tonight for the Ole Miss Radio Network as they take on the Duke Blue Devils. So let me get your opinion on this game that's going to kick off before you guys get going tonight from Jacksonville, and that's the Georgia Bulldogs against Notre Dame. Notre Dame has looked really good after stubbing their toe against Northern Illinois. You got Georgia, a brand new quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. What do you think?
That's not much of. I ain't scared, but I'm sure taking Georgia. Got blasted yesterday. Ooh, man, Oregon just didn't show against Ohio State. And Ohio State looked like we thought they would be, and they won big. For Georgia tonight, Georgia's got to get after Riley Leonard. They got to hit him hard every single play. Good, clean, tough football, but they got to get after him. It will be won with the Georgia defensive front. I think Notre Dame is using the Ole Miss film as the one that gives them hope, kind of getting Dart, like getting Leonard moving around like Dart did that day and trying to make something, happen kind of in run-pass option situations. But Georgia's got to defend it against that. The young quarterback's got a lot of pressure on him, and, boy, don't you know his NIL is going to go up if he wins this game.
Brett, in the case of Notre Dame offensively and Riley Leonard, I would say, yeah, you definitely give him the nod. If we're going quarterback versus quarterback matchup, and heck, he might get the nod if Carson Beck was even playing in this game. But is the emphasis for Kirby Smart in that defense, is it stop Love, stop that Notre Dame running game, and make Riley Leonard make enough plays to beat you? How do you think that this Georgia defense attacks this pretty solid Notre Dame offense?
The plan is, stop something and make them one-dimensional and put it all on Riley Leonard and see if he can beat Georgia. I just don't think he can. I know the law. But even in Notre Dame's wins, late against Indiana, how impressive was that? The USC game, the last game of the year, that could have been lost. I think they have really kind of threaded the needle to the Dome this afternoon. They're going to realize there's going to be a lot of Georgia fans there, and a rematch of a very famous game, Herschel Walker's freshman year when he ran all over Georgia. They won 17-10. I think the margin will be more points scored than that, but I think it's about a 7-10 point win for Georgia.
Brett Norsworthy joining us. You can hear him doing pre and post game there for the Ole Miss Sports Network. Also does a great radio show in Memphis on WHBQ. Want to keep this in the SEC here, Brett. So kind of wanted to get your thoughts. First off, your impressions of Texas and that close nail-biter against Arizona State, pulling it out in overtime, and what you saw from Texas in that game and how you think that might translate in their upcoming matchup with Ohio State, who, as you mentioned, I think we would all agree has looked like the best team in the playoffs so far.
Gutsy win for Texas that I honestly didn't think they had it in them to win that kind of game. And so maybe Steve Sarkisian has really kind of turned around that country club mentality a little bit with the Texas football team. That was a really hard-fought win, but we all came away from that game. It was what I like to call him John Riggins Scatterboo. I mean, whether it was running, throwing, passing, what a performance for him. And it a little bit, and these playoffs have a little bit vindicated, justified the committee and even those like me that said, Alabama and South Carolina and Ole Miss, we all need to look in the mirror. I don't think we were robbed. I don't think they were out to get us. I didn't want to go, kind of that paranoid as many did this year. As I said, a lot of the year, the SEC was really, really good. It was not vintage, and the bowls and the playoffs have played out like that. But the SEC was plenty good this year, and those that are really kicking us now that we're a little down, and I like all of y'all, just mystified at the obvious lack of preparation that Alabama had going into that game. That team was not ready to play, didn't perform well, and to continually to ask Jalen Milroe to be a 7-step pocket quarterback when he's best at improvisation. I was just begging late in the game, do a 2-step and go quarterback draw, and they just insisted on trying to throw from the pocket when nobody could get open.
Unbelievable. All right, you got an I Ain't Scared for us as we kick off 2025. Maybe you like Ole Miss in the 17
Georgia.
Points tonight? It's Georgia?
No, I like to take an underdog. It's Georgia and the slim 1 point. I think they win easily. And, well, we're really getting down to there aren't many college games left. Right now, on TV, control. Where are the games? Well, there's not any except for having to move the Georgia game over the. Every single one of us talking right now, thousands of people listening. We've all may not have been through there off Canal on to Bourbon Street for fun times and memorable life experiences, and a couple we can't remember, and then to have that senseless tragedy occur. New Orleans got a lot of ways. They got to get things together in a lot of ways.
Well, Brett, enjoy the game tonight as the Rebels take on the Duke Blue Devils. Happy New Year, and we will talk to you soon.
I can't wait. Thank you so much, guys. Thank y'all.
Thank you. That is Brett Norsworthy joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. When we come back on Three Man Front, your calls, and we'll read your text on the Courtesy GMC text line. This is Three Man Front. Ole Miss is currently a 17-point favorite. Meanwhile, as this moment, as we're just a couple hours away of Georgia-Notre Dame, Notre Dame is a 1-point favorite. 40 of Georgia-Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 1-point favorite. 45.5 is the total in the game. So there's your Vegas update.
While you're enjoying the games, maybe you want to elevate your vibe, your mood. You can do it with our friends at Mystic Beverage, made in Blount County, Alabama. You can find them at your local Piggly Wiggly. From the high hills Delta 9 to the lift, my favorite, which is going to increase your focus level. It's going to pick you up late in the day. It's got that green coffee bean extract, as well as some Delta 9, some CBD, and some CBD. Delta 8 is awesome as well. All sparkling water is a southern berry, but it's not sweet to taste. So some of you who are like me, who don't appreciate drinking a sweet drink, those flavors that are infused there, but it's still going to taste like sparkling water. It's delicious. It's Mystic Beverage, mysticbeverage.com. Find them at your local Piggly Wiggly. And they appreciate your support, and we appreciate their partnership here on Jocks.
So Texas knocks off Arizona State 39-31 in 2 overtimes. Quinn Ewers, 20 of 30, 322 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, trailing 31-24 in the first overtime and facing a 4th and 13. That's going to go down in Texas football lore.
That's rough.
Right there. When Quinn Ewers threw a perfect 28-yard touchdown pass to Matthew Gordon in the end zone. But, you had Bert Auburn. He just had multiple chances to
because Steve Sarkisian talked to him before the kick.
I guess.
Threw him off. Or the Arizona State
I was about to say the girls that walked in
trainers.
front of him.
They walked in front of him when he was trying to practice.
So Ewers finished the final 5 minutes of regulation and overtime. He was 11 of 14 for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's good.
So you can say all the criticism that you want to about Quinn Ewers. He finished the game strong. We mentioned those 2 missed field goals, but Arizona State, 510 total yards of offense.
About 509 of those were from Scattaboo?
Scattaboo had 143 rushing, 99 receiving, 42 passing. He was responsible for, think about this, 97 plays from scrimmage. He touched the ball 31 times.
And he also threw up multiple times.
He did.
The sideline.
Flu game.
So Texas is now 13-2. That's the 3rd time in program history that they've won 13 games. And they now have the most wins in the history of the Southeastern Conference for a team that has just entered the conference.
Well,
Texas A&M had the old record.
And if you like trends, the last 2 times they won 13 games, they played in a national championship game.
That is true. But after the game, I have more and more respect, and I hate that we did not get more Kenny Dillingham when he was at Auburn, but he was pretty much, let's just be honest, he had a no speaking to the media policy.
Yeah.
And so Gus Malzahn never let anybody have an opportunity to talk with him. Take a listen to this question and his answer after losing to Texas.
You went and there were some guys walking off the field, and you went and kind of circled them back toward the middle of the field and some guys on the bench. What were you doing there?
Yeah, you lost the game. Doesn't mean you just get to leave. Like, you shake hands. That's what you do. That's sportsmanship. So nothing more than, if we would have won, you shake the team's hand. You lose, you go out there, and it's not fun, but that's part of life.
Much respect for
Love
Kenny
it.
Dillingham.
Love it. Class guy.
Just saw a couple minutes ago where Deion Sanders had tweeted at Kenny Dillingham, basically telling him how much respect he had for him and for the fact that
they're the 2 worst coaches in the Big 12.
Based on CBSSports.com, yes. He said, really appreciated him representing the Big 12. Nice job, Coach of the Year. So
he just got locked up.
Sure did.
Big time contract. Good for him, man. 34 years old.
Much deserved.
He is now. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to go college basketball equivalent. And this guy did have success, and then he had some issues that led to his departure. But you remember Josh Pastner?
Mm-hmm. Yep. He was at
the
Memphis and then Georgia
coach,
Tech. And Georgia
most
Tech.
positive individual you could ever listen to. I see some of those similarities, just personality-wise, with a guy like Kenny Dillingham.
Yes. No, I agree with that. The game last night really was not much of a game. Ohio State over Oregon, 41-21. Ohio State jumped out to a 34-0 lead, 212 yards passing in the first quarter by Will Howard. Jeremiah Smith, 7 receptions, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dan Orlovsky this morning on ESPN said that if he were to come out and was eligible for the draft today, that he would be the number 1 player picked.
I saw people saying if you could go ahead and pick him today and not get him on your team for 2 years, he would be worth the number 1 pick right now. That's how good he is. And a lot of people saying he is the best college wide receiver they have ever seen.
So Oregon had minus 23 rushing yards against Ohio State.
Yeah, not good.
Dylan Gabriel, going into the game, he had been sacked 13 times the entire year. He was sacked 8 yesterday.
Best defense in the country.
Ohio State has now outscored their opponents in the playoffs 83-38. Not bad. Here's Dan Lanning after the game last night at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's an excuse. I thought our guys prepared well going in. Obviously, they had a better plan than us, but that's an excuse. That's an opportunity that we had to recharge. I thought our guys did practice well. I'd tell you if that wasn't the case. I thought they had great focus. I just don't think our plan was good enough, and I think they had a great plan to attack us, so credit to those guys.
And basically what he was referring to was, the question was, did you have an issue with the seating? Did you have a problem with you guys having to sit out?
Did the bye hurt you and you kind of had some rust going into that game?
Yeah. And he said, no, that would be an excuse.
Seems like playing that first round game is working out for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Some teams.
I mean, you think about it, 44-0. They had a bye. Boise trailed 14-0. They had a bye. And Arizona State trailed 17-3.
I was about to say, if Georgia loses today, all 4 teams with the first round bye will lose.
Yeah. Javad Campbell, he has declared for the NFL draft for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Meanwhile, Jalen Milroe has sent a cryptic message on Instagram. We will tell you what that means next. It is 1 o'clock here on Jocks 94.5. This is Reaction Thursday, basically. Alabama loses to Michigan. They finished the year 9-4. We've got the Sugar Bowl coming up from New Orleans, 3 o'clock kickoff right here on Jocks 94.5. The Courtesy GMC text line is wide open at 205-834-9450. And Conrad, I know that we've gotten so many today, we have just barely scratched the surface.
Absolutely, yeah. Appreciate all of you chiming in throughout the show, whether it's about Alabama, about the college football playoff quarterfinals, the game coming up between Georgia and Notre Dame in about 2 hours. You'll be able to hear on Jocks 94.5. But we have Let's see, Sean, who texted in, and he said about the Alabama game, he says, changing quarterbacks wouldn't have stopped the offensive line from getting dominated against Michigan. Go Blue. I mean, that is fair. Let's see, somebody texting in that says, seems like Kalen DeBoer felt like he owed it to Jalen Milroe for sticking around and keeping things together when Saban retired. I would bet that Kalen DeBoer is glad Milroe will be gone. Let's see, somebody else chiming in. They say, you are right. It rained. Alabama lost their footing. Milroe slips and starts running and the ball is out. They should have put Ty Simpson in and had a more consistent passing attack. I think a lot of people were looking to see that. TC from Jasper text in. He says, is it me or does Kalen DeBoer not give any answers to the questions asked to him in his press conferences? It's just the same old rambling, stumbling answers. I think he's a very coach-speaky coach.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a little different.
So is his quarterback.
He's the most coach-speaky player I've ever heard. Let's see. Casey texted, he says, most frustrating thing about this coaching staff, especially the offensive staff, is they did not make adjustments during a single game this year. No halftime adjustments, no sideline adjustments, just roll with the original game plan and hope it works. Nick Sheridan has to go. I think a lot of people feel the same way. Posey texting, he says, so the sideline penalty that Alabama had, did they get a warning prior to the penalty being called?
No, the female referee on the side judge, she was basically barreled over. I believe that was maybe Freddie Roach.
I think that is who it was. That was kind of just a weird situation.
She did get trucked.
So basically, it was simply she was just standing there doing her job, and they were excited because Alabama got a big third down stop, and I guess he didn't see her and ran over her, and she immediately got back to her feet and dropped the flag.
Yep. Let's see. Patrick texts in. He says, I've said all year long that Milroe is a great athlete, but he's not a quarterback. He is a heck of an athlete.
Okay, so we kind of teased. Explain to what, for folks that do not follow Jalen Milroe on Instagram.
Yeah.
Tell us the two pictures and the caption that he had.
Yeah, so about, 20 minutes ago or so, Jalen Milroe made a post on Instagram. So the first picture is, I guess, a picture of him playing Pee-wee football. And then the next one is a picture of him, or I guess just the end zone at Alabama with him doing, where he goes to the end zone and knees down and prays before every game. And it has the caption, Dear younger me, you'd be so proud of how far we've come. You faced the impossible with strength and kept smiling when most wouldn't. I promise to keep making you proud. The best is yet to come. I would say that is an indicator that his time at Alabama, whether it is via the portal or the NFL draft, is done. That is just my
I don't know how many
impression.
How many millions of dollars he's lost as far as potential NFL contracts or where he was going to be taken or is taken. But the great news for Jalen Milroe and others like him is, based on people we've talked to, he's got $10 million sitting in the bank already. Just be conservative with your money. What? It's not like he's playing for a roster spot, or he was playing for a roster spot.
Also, Jahad Campbell, he posted on social media that he has declared for the NFL draft.
Yeah, and I saw where Deontay Lawson responded to it and essentially just said, love playing with you, brother, appreciate the camaraderie, that kind of thing. So that is a player who we are waiting on his decision. He could come back for another year. Of course, had that injury late in the season that kind of knocked him out for the last couple of games, but that would certainly be a big returning piece for Alabama.
I've been told that he is leaning towards leaving. That's what I've been told with him.
Well, hopefully Justin Jefferson then getting the JUCO eligibility will help fill that gap, because Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson were both spectacular for Alabama, especially Campbell this year. Let's see. Mark from Homewood text in. He says, the talent on Alabama's roster has been overstated for the past 2 years, and that certainly includes Jalen Milroe. How long has it been since Alabama didn't have a clear first-round pick?
Forever.
2007? Well, was Andre Smith that year? Is that the year after? I mean, it's been a while. It's been almost 20 years.
That'd have been the year after, right?
I think so. That might have been
after the Sugar Bowl, Utah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So that would have been 2009. Yeah.
And just think,
or
going
2008.
into it's going to almost be 5 years since Alabama won its last national championship.
Yes, Pat, that is correct. I will just say this. I would also, with the draft question, I would be surprised if Booker doesn't end up being a first-round pick. That's where he's been mocked essentially since last year. It's possible he falls, but yeah, that would be a first in a long time if Alabama didn't have a first-round pick. Let's see. Someone texted in and they say the Kalen DeBoer debacle is officially on. Based on these text messages, I would say that is true for a lot of you. What is that? Okay, somebody just sent in a picture of Alexander Shinara. We have somebody texting in from Oklahoma. They say Alabama just signed the number 2 recruiting class in the country. How are they getting their butts kicked in recruiting? I think he's referencing, I think that was Crimson Convict that called in.
He was talking, wasn't he talking portal though?
He did. He brought up the portal. I can't remember if he brought up recruiting specifically or not, but I think we would agree that recruiting-wise, things are still going quite well for Alabama. And they have been for the last 2 cycles.
Can you keep them?
Correct. That is always the big question for every team, not just Alabama. Let's see. Another text coming in. Hypothetically speaking, do you think if Nick Saban was still the coach this year that they would have made the playoffs or made a deep run to the national championship game? I think Nick Saban retired 1 year too early.
I think they would have made the college football playoff because I don't think they would have lost to Vanderbilt or Oklahoma.
Correct.
Now, they might have lost one of those.
Maybe one, but not both.
But not both.
I agree.
And they would have made the college football playoff with 2 losses.
Yes.
I think that Nick Saban, if he's still the head coach, Alabama probably gets the benefit of the doubt, and they still get in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Somebody texted in. They say, do you think Ryan Williams will be the highest paid player on Alabama's roster next year? I would say either him or Keelan Russell, depending on what his deal was to come out of high school.
He needs to be.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see. Tom chiming in. Tom's text. Jalen Milroe, if you're listening, if you come back to Bama, please take the game seriously. We want you to work on having tunnel vision and start communicating with your receivers. We don't need a robot for a quarterback. We need an engineer. I don't see your will to want to win. Let's see. He says, Lamar Jackson can scramble and survey the field. You can't do both, so build on that one skill. Well, Tom, I would be shocked if Jalen Milroe is back under center for Alabama next year. But yes, I think a lot of those complaints ring true for a lot of Alabama fans. Let's see. Okay, Blake texts in. He says there are Mi Casitas in Glencoe, Hoax Bluff, Southside, and Aniana.
Oh my goodness!
So you got options.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
It doesn't have the Scott Drew booth. No, it's not the same.
Field trip. You don't get the mariachi band.
I'm sure we could
string
something.
You don't
together.
get the Tex-Mex. Mexican cuisine in Texas is completely different than what you have here in Alabama.
That is a good point. Will texts in. He says, Kalen DeBoer has zero control over this team and was trying to force a square peg into a round hole with Jalen Milroe. As an Auburn fan, I'm loving this. Really ridiculous and overblown. Hope the 85% kept their Walmart receipts so they can return their Alabama jerseys. Can you buy those at Walmart?
Who was more disappointing as far as the roster that they had and the schedule that they had? Was it Kalen DeBoer or was it Hugh Freeze? Conrad.
I would still go Kalen DeBoer because of who you lost to. Again, if the losses were different, I think you could make the stronger argument for Hugh, but just losing to the way that you lost to Michigan, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt, that's honestly something I never thought I would see in my lifetime as an Alabama fan, is losing to those average programs and that many in one season. Let's see. Chill texts in. He says, hook 'em horns, but I think Ohio State is ultimately going to be your national champion. They certainly have the hot hand right now.
If they play as well as they played the last 2 games, nobody's going to beat them.
No, and they're going to beat everybody by 20 plus if they play that way. Let's see. Somebody texting in. They say, as a 14-year-old Alabama fan, I have received a lot of criticism for supporting my team. Personally, I think it's going to take a year or two for DeBoer to adjust and build Bama up similarly to how Sarkisian has built Texas where they are right now. Milroe had a rocky season, but I still think he has great things ahead of him. And as always, roll Tide. Appreciate the optimism. I wish I could share that. Let's see. Tay from Birmingham says, on the Alabama coaching changes, take the under of 3 that Landrum brought up. but they need to get a new quarterback coach and a top recruiter on the staff. Okay. Another text coming in. Please answer this, guys. If everyone today all agrees that Milroe wasn't a fit for the system, why did you play him? Don't teams of any sport at any level play the guys that help you win? Milroe clearly cost Alabama the playoffs and 3 wins this year. I get it. He's athletic, and that's great. So make him a tight end or a running back, but not the quarterback. The goal is to win, not let those who are deserving play. DeBoer has killed the program with his bad choices.
Well, Milroe was a fit against Georgia, and he was a fit against LSU.
Yes. You're right. Let's see. Someone texting in, they say someone needs to tell Jalen Milroe to become the next Taysom Hill. A lot of NFL teams need one roster spot for multiple positions. I mean, he has carved out a very nice role for himself there in New Orleans. Let's see. Justice texts in. He says, I'm glad Conrad said what he did about Ryan Williams' face after that horrible overthrown pass. I told everyone that represents the fans, the receivers, and the offensive line alongside Jalen Milroe. He was not happy. He was certainly not happy. Let's see. Someone says Ryan Williams was catching underthrown passes all year long.
How much could Jalen Milroe help himself if he went the route of, and I know it's different circumstances and how he left because he wanted, but Jalen Hurts and what he did and going to Oklahoma in his final year in that system. How much could Jalen Milroe help himself in the eyes of NFL scouts?
I mean, it would be funny if he went to USC and paired up with Lincoln Riley, which
good gosh.
Nick Saban, I mean, when Jalen left, I mean, we found out that essentially him and Nick Saban sat down and said, hey, let's find the best landing spot for you to develop into an NFL quarterback. I don't know if that would be Lincoln Riley now, but you know, there's going to be schools that are going to offer you a lot of money.
I think at the end of the day, whoever is advising Jalen Milroe, they're advising him to leave now.
Yes, I would agree with that.
That's my thought.
Let's see. Robert Texton, he says, despite the roster transitions, there's no way Alabama or Auburn currently has a better football roster than Alabama. Don't agree with Don on that one. Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. You could say the gap is closing, but I don't think that Auburn's roster is better.
It's a lot closer than it's been in a while.
I will give you that. Let's see. Doug texts in. He says, Jalen Milroe is truly a dual threat quarterback. He could fumble unexpectedly or throw an inexplicable interception. You never know. That's good. I like that, Doug. Let's see. Buck from Lynn texts in. He says, I think the defense played great except for the slap the face moment from Justin Jefferson where he punched the player on the ground. Yeah, that wasn't great. I think some fans were probably happy to see Kalen DeBoer kind of tear him a new one on the sidelines after that. Because,
They took him out for one play, and he ripped into him, and he came back in.
Yeah, you got to be better than that. Got to be better. Let's see. Somebody texts in and says, do you guys know if anyone has picked up Kobe Prentice out of the transfer portal? I watched him play at Calera, and he was really, really good. Yes, he went to – did he go to Kansas?
That sounds right.
Did he end up there?
There were a couple guys that went to Kansas. Oh, Baylor. Sorry. He went to Baylor. There's another receiver that went to Emmanuel Henderson.
That's right.
Kansas.
Henderson went to Kansas.
That's the receiver that went to Kansas.
Where's JoJo Earl? Is he still at TCU?
No, he transferred. Oh, man.
Oh, that's right. Where'd he go?
Did he? No, hang on.
Find that former Alabama wide receiver.
He is going to go play for Dan Mullen.
Oh.
Going to go get a little taste of the Vegas life.
Yes.
All right, let's see. Will texting in. He says, serious question. If Milroe comes back to college, would Florida State be a legitimate destination for him? Seems like he could be a good fit for Gus Malzahn's offense, quarterback run, and then chunk it down the field.
That's right.
I think they could do a lot more. I mean, you won 2 games this year. I think you could do worse. It's just more of a matter of, how much is a guy like that going to command? Because we heard the rumors over the weekend that Quinn Ewers potentially has a $6 million offer if he were to come back and enter the transfer portal. And I think Jalen Milroe would probably command maybe not $6 million, but pretty close to it.
We will get back.
Osceola.
We will get back to your text messages momentarily here on Jocks 94.5. A reminder that the Georgia-Notre Dame game will be heard right here on Jocks at 3 o'clock.
Well, if you're looking to upgrade and enhance your outdoor living area and landscape, and you can do it now before spring gets here, you can do it with our friends at Second Generation Masonry. Their expert team for a fire pit, maybe an outdoor fireplace, landscape steps, maybe an outdoor kitchen, garden walls, stone patio, walkways, custom driveways. These are your folks. Take your outdoor living area to the next level Wonderful company. Check out Second Generation Masonry at secondgenerationmasonry.com. Get the free quote today, and make sure you tell them Landrum from Three Man Front sent you.
Well, more of your text, more of your phone calls await. We still have to get into Georgia and Notre Dame coming up in just under 2 hours. You're listening to Three Man Front here on Jocks 94.5.
It is 1:20, Jocks 94.5. We have the fourth quarterfinal game go off at 3 o'clock today. You can hear it right here on Jocks 94.5. Well, one of those games yesterday, and we were talking about it just a few minutes ago, and that was the non-targeting call in the Arizona State game. Well, Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference, he has released a statement. He's not very happy. He goes on to talk about how proud he was of Arizona State representing the Big 12 Conference. And then he goes on to say the following. As a member of the College Football Playoff Management Committee, I have had multiple discussions seeking clarity surrounding the targeting call on Arizona State's final drive of the fourth quarter with Richard Clark. Now, Richard Clark is the executive director of the College Football Playoff. Moving forward, we need to address CFP officiating to ensure national standards are developed. These standards will be crucial to the CFP's future, and I look forward to discussing them with my fellow committee members when we meet next.
Okay.
I mean, well, did he watch college football in general this year? Because I think every college football fan would say something similar about officiating.
Mm-hmm.
National standard. What, just across the board, make sure that all of our officials never get a call wrong? How are we going to do this? Come on.
Robot officials, Landrum, on the field.
Well, not to mention the fact that all these crews come from different conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Like the crew that you had yesterday was not a Big 12 or an SEC crew.
Yes, because they don't want there to be bias or the illusion of bias. Yeah.
Just like the other night during the Boise Penn State game, Hewitt Trussville's very own Kevin Marlowe, he was the white cap. He's an SEC.
Oh, very cool.
He's an SEC official.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
You want to, yeah, you think you've got it bad now. Get a group out of Conference USA to come and officiate one of these games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you ever aspire to be a college football official, they'll make you feel good about reaching your goals. Well, they used to anyways.
Yeah, that's not good. We've heard horror stories from Bill Clark about the Conference USA officials, to the point to where they were like bragging, like before even the coin toss, about
like things they could get away with or calls they could make in a game.
Like how bad they're going to be, and you better be careful, and
they keep receipts. Let's just say that.
Yes,
sure they do.
Yep, they carry grudges.
Yep. Back to the text line we go, brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful.
Yes, and we have a text coming in. It says, so if Kalen DeBoer put in Ty Simpson and he got hurt, what are Alabama fans saying today? They would be killing DeBoer. I didn't want Ty Simpson to play because I didn't want him to get hurt in a meaningless bowl game. Alabama fans are weirdos, and I'm one of them, but I also try to be reasonable.
At least he's honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we are. We're weirdos. It's all right. Comes with the territory.
But think about how much momentum and how much talk if Ty Simpson comes in the game, he leads Alabama on a touchdown-winning drive.
And I, yes, I agree with that. And I understand the sentiment of you don't want a guy to get hurt. I also just look at it. You can't go into a game with the idea of, well, if this player gets hurt, we can't play him because, I mean, you could get hurt walking, in warm-ups. You can get hurt in workouts. You get hurt, riding a scooter to class. So,
I mean, the worst situation for Jalen Milroe was happening during the torrential rain.
Yep.
Like break your ankle, tear your ACL.
Yeah, fortunately that did not happen, but...
Did you say fortunately or unfortunately?
Fortunately, that did not happen.
I thought I heard unfortunately.
I did too.
I would not wish him to actually
get... of the tongue by Conrad.
No, I don't want him to get hurt. I just didn't want him to play in the game. Let's see. Austin texts in. He says, do y'all think Jalen Milroe would have fared better if he didn't play in the bowl game and just went into the NFL draft as opposed to putting on the performance the other day?
Yes.
Yep. I agree. Let's see. Somebody text in. They say, yes, it was targeting in the Arizona State game, but is there any guarantee that Arizona State would have made that kick? No, there's not.
No.
They had big trouble kicking field goals this year, but I think they would have liked the opportunity to end the game there in regulation with a kick. But fair point. They had walk-on tryouts halfway through the season for field goal kickers. So
we will get back to your text messages in just a couple moments. Let's get back to the phones. Let's go to Greg in Russellville here on 3 Man Front. Happy New Year, Greg.
Happy New Year. It's good to see you.
Good to have you on.
I was going to call. I'm calling about something else, but I just wanted to make a comment about what you were just talking about. As far as I'm disappointed in Alabama didn't fare better than they did, but I wish that Simpson would have played because the experience would have been good going into next year. As far as the flagrant foul, I guess you'd say, it should never be targeting if your face mask hits somebody. I mean, a long time ago, that's what you were taught to do.
Yeah.
So that's what when I played, I was taught your face mask. You be facing who you're going to hit. And
yeah. See the guy that you're tackling. Right.
Yeah. Why would a face mask hitting another face mask ever be a targeting? For one thing, so they need to quit. Just keep adding stuff onto that. To or breathe on them. But anyway, I thought the hit on Bond, in my opinion, either. I thought it was a worse hit. But anyway, that's not really what I called to talk about. I was debating with my brother on the bowl games, the Alabama, Michigan, about the attendances at both.
Mm-hmm.
He thought the attendances would be down. But both of them were up from last year, and Alabama, I think, was South Carolina's was 47, a little over 47,000.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the announced attendance for the Alabama game was 51,000. The year before, the ReliaQuest Bowl, I think, did 31,000. So it was about a 20,000 difference. But I will say this, the attendance at yesterday's Texas-Arizona State game, it was technically a sellout of 71,000. And we'll talk to Barrett Salee tomorrow because he was at the game. But some estimates said that there was probably no more than 55,000 people there. It was a lot of, looked like Atlanta Falcons game, a lot of fans disguised as empty seats.
Corporate tickets.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I saw where the ReliaQuest and the bowl within Tampa was very happy with who they selected. They said they were happy. They wouldn't have selected any other teams.
Well, Greg, what's so interesting about that is because on Selection Sunday, remember, it was kind of a slap in the face to Alabama that the Citrus Bowl wanted South Carolina. Alabama was the next team on the list to go to a bowl game, and the Citrus Bowl passed on Alabama. They wanted South Carolina. They did not want Alabama, but the Alabama-Michigan game had more people in attendance than the Citrus Bowl, which I thought was funny.
Well, I used to live in Tampa, and the Outback Bowl is what we called it then. We always loved that bowl, and it always got a lot of good attendance from people in town too. But the only drawback's ever been for that game is because everybody don't like it being so early in the morning.
Yeah.
But if you had that game at 3:00 in the afternoon, I think that would be a huge game every year just because of where it's at.
Greg,
I remember it when it was the Blockbuster Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Do what?
The Blockbuster Bowl.
That was a good one in
back
Miami.
In the old days, I used to go in them stores a long time ago. That tells my age, huh?
Hey, Greg.
But anyway, that's
Happy
all
New Year.
I had today. Good show, guys.
Thank you very much. Let's go next to Rob and Helena. Hey, Rob, Happy New Year.
Hey, guys. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you guys all have Merry Christmas. I think I'll talk to you after Christmas. I'm not real sure. Hey, I just have one thing to say. All right. Hey, look, I love Jalen Milroe. He came from a wonderful family. A military. The guy just graduated in, 3.5 years with a master's degree. And he's probably the best athlete on team whenever he gets out there. But Conrad, when I was listening to, I think, Miami Hater earlier on your show with Damien, things like that, he's completely right. There's a total difference between being educated and smart and things like that and being a football. Jalen Milroe is not seeing the football field. And my brother, who's a Mississippi State fan, he came up, and my sister-in-law, and they came up Monday night, and we watched the game together on Tuesday. And my brother even said, he's not looking at the football field. But let me tell you something about Ty Simpson. His dad's a college football coach.
Yep.
He has grown up in football. He may not be as smart or as athletic as Jalen, but I think you probably see the field far better. And another thing is that Coach DeBoer did not do Jalen any good by keeping it in when he was playing so bad during those daggone games, because he lost himself. He went from a first round to maybe a third or a fourth round on the games that he just lost. Yeah, he won us a couple games, but he lost all four that we lost. by bad decisions.
So, Rob, would you be okay with him coming back for another year at Alabama?
No, none.
Okay.
No
None.
hesitation.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. Because I tell you what, if he did that, Kalen would have to start him. Ty would probably
leave.
Transfer.
I would tell Ty Simpson to leave at that point. Yeah, he's been more than loyal.
No. Well, no, I agree with Miami Hater. If he says, okay, I'm going to come back for my $2 million, 100%. No. Ty Simpson knows that he's going to be the guy. His dad, he knows how to read the field. And I'll tell you what, right now, when I saw our best number 2 receiver, number 1, but he is number 2, get frustrated over an overthrow on the 4-yard out, that said it all to me.
Yeah, appreciate you chiming in there, Rob. Yeah, I think a lot feel that way. And yeah, I mean, football IQ is very important. I think that's a criticism a lot of people had about Jalen Milroe is he just never seemed to figure out how to read a football field the way that a quarterback needs to. Whoever's the quarterback next year will be better in that regard.
We will do the first Pat Ponders of 2025 when we come. Also, a little bit of news about the Birmingham Stallions, their first game, who they're playing, and where it's going to be played. We'll give you that next on Three Man Front. Welcome back in. It's Three Man Front on this Thursday, 3 o'clock today on Jock 94.5. You can listen to the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame and Georgia, one of those teams, will punch their ticket to move on to the national semifinals in the college football playoff. Then later tonight, 7:05, it'll be the Ole Miss Rebels playing the Duke Blue Devils in the Gator Bowl. The kickoff weekend for the United Football League has been announced, and our Birmingham Stallions, the back-to-back world champion Stallions, they will be playing on the road. It will be a 2 o'clock kickoff from Washington, D.C., as they take on the D.C. Defenders. First game will be the weekend of March the 28th. Actually, there'll be remember, the UFL's doing Friday night games now. So St. Louis will take on Houston on Friday night. Then there will be one game on Saturday, San Antonio at Arlington, and a doubleheader on Sunday. Both of those games are going to be on ESPN. It will be the Panthers versus the Showboats from Memphis, and then the Stallions on the road against the Defenders.
Nobody I hate more than the DC Defenders. Classic.
I don't know. The Battle Donks, I don't like them.
The what?
We get the Battle Donks, Battle Hawks, St. Louis, week 8.
Good.
We get them.
Now, was that the game that was Landrum in a box and we were in the press box, or did you not go to that game? Did you go to the Battle Hawks game last year?
Yeah, I was there.
You were there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I was standing in line trying to get my Trent Richardson autograph on the concourse while y'all were in the getting seated.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, congratulations talking about the Stallions. Their general manager, Zach Potter, got a new opportunity. He got hired by Sacramento State to be their new GM today. So a very bright future for a young up-and-comer in the world of professional Stallions. Fantastic.
No, and Skip Holtz, I mean, he has sung his praises not only on our show, but just talking to us about a guy that really gets it and just has a full grasp of player knowledge and is like a walking encyclopedia without looking at notes. But yeah, that's a tough blow for the Stallions because Coach Holtz has talked about how instrumental he's been in putting together that roster. But that's good to see him getting an opportunity to go and advance his career.
First time in 2025. Let's do this. Pat Ponder is brought to you by Courtesy GMC.
I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind.
It's time for Pat Ponders.
Brought to you by Courtesy GMC in Trussville. Easy to find. Don't drive anywhere else. Drive to Trussville. Go to Courtesy GMC. Right off of I-459, exit 32 on Edwards Lake Road, right next to Lowe's. Question number 1 of the new year. Which team would have won their bowl game if this would have happened? Miami, if Cam Ward would have not opted out at halftime, or Alabama if Jalen Milroe would have opted out before the game.
I will say that Cam Ward, if he plays the second half, Miami wins that game.
I was also going to say Miami.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, Conrad.
No. I mean, I think that's the right answer. I think that's the easy answer because we saw how that played out. But I mean, honestly, I think the answer is both. I think.
So you're saying both teams would have won?
Yes, but
Miami, the odds would have been better for Cam Ward if he had played the entire game.
Absolutely, but I don't think Ty Simpson would have turned the ball over 3 times in the first 4 drives. But that's a hypothetical.
I agree. I think that would have been a blowout.
If Cam had stayed in?
If Cam Ward would have played the entire game.
Oh, I mean, he was incredible. 200 yards, passing, 3 touchdowns in the first half. He was on fire. Yeah.
All right, question number 2. Have you changed your opinion on the strength of the SEC after the bowl games and the CFP?
No.
No.
Not really.
It's pretty much what I thought we had all season. Now it's been week in, week out as far as some teams and how we view them, but for the most part, no. I think that this has been a reflection of what we got over an 8-game conference schedule.
I think it's been more balanced, and I think that kind of leans to people saying, oh, it's not as dominant because maybe you don't have the 1 or 2 just absolutely dominant teams like we thought in Oregon was in the Big Ten, for example. But no, I mean, I think it's still the best conference in college football top to bottom.
I'd agree.
Ooh, the Big Ten grad.
Shocking.
She's changed a lot.
I have.
Not really. You don't see the text messages. She's in
This
his
is
bag.
true. This is true. What is my...
We'll keep those private.
Okay. Never mind.
I won't.
Talking bad about my program?
No, I was just...
I won't disclose the smack talk that Molly likes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not towards Alabama.
No.
No,
never.
It's not towards Alabama.
Well, they're the new Nebraska. So.
Oh no. Oh.
I'm kidding. That was a joke.
Wait, do you want to say that?
No, it was a joke.
Would you rather have Ty Simpson or Dylan Raiola suiting up at quarterback next year, Conrad?
Well, you
I'll
didn't hear
take
it the
Ty.
other day, but she told me in Landrum that she would not trade Raiola for any quarterback.
No.
And that's how she should respond as a
Thank
Nebraska
you.
fan.
Thank you.
Is that the right answer? No.
No.
But for her, okay.
I
see?
can't
There we go.
I can't put that bad voodoo on Raiola.
See, it's like
in
coming
year
into
two?
this year,
Right.
it's the same thing with Milroe. Did I have a lot of confidence in Milroe? Yes, but he was also the Alabama quarterback, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you.
Not anymore, but
You're so ready to be done with him.
I've been done with him.
All right, here we go. Question number 3. Now that Ohio State has marched into the college football playoff semifinal, does that silence the Fire Ryan Day crowd in Columbus for a couple years?
Yeah, because of how dominant they've been.
I mean, Ohio State's been the best team of college football the past few weeks. So, yeah. I
don't
mean, you
know
lost
if
to
it's-
Michigan, but...
Yeah. It just depends. As impressive as they've looked, if he goes out and he loses in the semifinal, then all the blame's going to be put on him. And how could you let this happen? So,
fair.
and it's going to magnify the 4 straight losses to your rival.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you'll still hear some of it for sure.
No, I mean, I think that
That's fair.
I think he's good for at least another year. Granted, if they do, let's say they get blown out by Texas by 21, then yeah, I mean Ohio State. I mean it's like Alabama, Georgia, right? Like those kinds of fan bases. If you don't win a national championship, somebody out there is going to want the coach to be fired. So.
Right.
But I think he has certainly helped his job security.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, next question. Saquon Barkley, he is sitting out this weekend.
Boo.
He is forfeiting a chance to break the NFL single-season rushing record. Do you agree or disagree with his decision?
I actually agree. I said boo because it would be cool to see him do it, but your goal is to win a Super Bowl, not to break personal records, and the Eagles are in very good shape right now. I would say besides the Lions, they would probably be my favorite to come out of the NFC into the Super Bowl. So, yeah, you want to keep your best guys healthy.
Well, I mean,
And he's a running back.
You're playing the Giants.
But he could break the all-time
I
record
know.
against the
his
team
former
that
team?
let him go.
That's true, but still.
What a
I wonder,
storyline.
is there any kind of performance clause in his contract where if he was to break that, how much it would mean?
Yeah, I would hope that if they were going to sit him, that they would just do we'll just kind of give you the bonus anyways because he's been the best running back in football this year anyways. But that's a good point.
Next question. If you make a New Year's resolution, how long does it normally last? And you might not ever make one, but if you did or do, how long does it normally last?
Well, if I get through 30 days, the old saying, takes 30 days to form a good habit. It takes 1 day to start a bad habit. So if I get through the 30 days, I generally will keep it.
Yeah, I would say around a month is, like Landrum said, kind of that tipping point of I'm going to continue this or this was fun. But I mean, okay, for example, like right now, like I'm not going to drink alcohol for the next 30 days. Like that's whatever.
Dry
like
January.
for a month. Doesn't mean I'm never going to drink alcohol again, but it doesn't mean I was an alcoholic, but it just probably be good to take. Don't paint me like that. It'd just be good to take, a month off. And it's one of those habits that, it's good to take a break from sometimes. So yeah, a month.
Mine's about a month too.
Do you make New Year's resolutions?
Usually.
Did you make one this year?
I did.
I'm not asking you what it is.
No,
but, you
but
did
yes,
make
I
one.
did. Yes.
Would you be willing to share it?
Maybe.
You like Creed in The Office? Is it to do a cartwheel? Is that your New Year's resolution?
When you first said that, I thought something about playing Creed music in The Office.
Oh, no. No. The character.
Okay, what is it?
I want to walk more.
Walk more.
Like
okay.
go on walks, get my steps in.
More steps.
I was pretty bad about that last year.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
More steps.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Because we sit here the whole time, so I'm trying to, walk more.
Do you have one, Pat? Clean the moat more?
Feed the gators.
Start walking to work, Molly.
No.
No, I'm
Won't
like
do
Molly.
that.
I'm pretty. My wife can tell you. I'm pretty religious about the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't have certain number of steps by the time I get home in the afternoon, I'm
walking laps around the house.
Or I'm
and
going to
stuff?
do stuff outside.
What is it? 20,000 a day? 10,000 a day steps?
I try to get at least 10,000.
10,000. I think.
And I try to do something every morning, but it is so tough when you don't feel well.
It is.
But then you feel like just an absolute piece of because you already feel bad and not doing it. But yeah, steps is good, man.
You want to jump rope after the show, Landrum?
Oh my gosh.
We're going to start doing pre-show
It's good team building.
That sounds so horrible. Double Dutch. Do we have to chant while we do it?
Of course.
All right, that's today 25, brought to you by Courtesy GMC. Visit them online at courtesybirmingham.com. We will get to more of your text and a few more phone calls. See you later for the first show in 2025. A reminder, Sugar Bowl coming up at 3 right here on Jax. We always appreciate your input here on Three Man Front, whether it's at Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, Three Man Front. Your text messages on the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450, and your phone calls at 1-800-239-WJOX.
You know, during the holiday season and riding around looking at Christmas lights and just admiring the beauty, not only of the lights and how people decorated their houses, but also some of the outdoor landscape areas that you see around Metro Birmingham. Well, our friends at Second Generation Masonry, that's the team that creates those kind of areas. Their expert team crafts durable brick, concrete, and elegant stone that can elevate any space, from fire pits, landscape steps, custom driveways, stone patios, walkways. These are your folks. Take your outdoor living area to the next level. Check out Second Generation Masonry at secondgenerationmasonry.com. Go there today for the free quote. And as always, make sure that you tell them that Landrum at Jocks 94.5 sent you.
Couple more minutes we have before we will yield for the next hour or so before the kickoff of the Sugar Bowl. And the text messages, Conrad, they continue to roll in.
Absolutely. Appreciate everyone chiming in throughout the show today. We have Michael who texted in. He's asking, in the Peach Bowl yesterday, weren't those Big Ten officials calling that game? I don't know if you remember exactly who the officiating crew was, but I
can get that for you momentarily.
All righty. Let's see. We have somebody that texted in. They say, love your callers. Y'all are wonderful, and I value your show. I wish there was a way to filter out certain opinions and based on experience. For example, did you play college football? Did you play professional football? What positions did you play in terms of people when they're speaking about things like that? So appreciate you texting in there. Let's see. Some people, of course, Mike Griffith, not always it's Mike. Let's see. Dan texts in. He says, if Ohio State doesn't win the national championship, I'm betting Mike Vrabel is the coach next year.
That was the rumor. That Vrabel was maybe the go-to guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. He may find himself back in the NFL. He might be competing with John Gruden. I saw that John Gruden is now a pretty hot name for some of these NFL openings this offseason. Let's see. We have somebody text in. They say, I want Fat Phil to be the college football commissioner. We need a man of great integrity that will work for the people.
Yeah, Pat.
Would you endorse that?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
Somebody said they want Fat Phil to be the college football commissioner because he's a man of integrity.
That would be an affirmative no. By the way, the white cap in the Texas-Arizona State game, he is from Kansas City, Missouri. He's the assistant principal at a central middle school there in Kansas City, and he is a Big Ten official.
There you go. All right, that's okay. Let's see. Jonathan texts in. He says, Notre Dame will beat Georgia. I really don't see the optimism, where the optimism's coming from for Georgia. Notre Dame wins 34-21.
Oh, and also, and we probably did not watch the game long enough, but he was the white cap for the Georgia-TCU national championship game.
Oh, boy.
I'll be honest, we probably didn't watch it long enough.
Nope.
To notice that Larry Smith was the white cap.
Oh, what an experience that was for him.
He had plenty of opportunities to
raise his arms,
to totally zone out in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm about to say if there's anything else on, I would have done the same thing to Oregon yesterday, but there was nothing else on. So
going back to what Jonathan said, and I know that we had bet it or forget it, but I like Notre Dame in this game today. I hate it for the SEC, but I think Notre Dame wins.
Okay. Oh, well, all right. So
I'm taking the under too.
Okay, Landrum likes the under. Notre Dame. I like Georgia. Do you have?
I like Georgia.
I took the under.
And by the way, just want to point this out quickly because she's not going to do it. I told her to brag about it, but she's not like.
I'm humble.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's do it.
So she is 4-0 on her bet it or forget it. She was 5-0 the last time we did it. So she is on a 9-0 run on her bet it or forget it picks.
I'm a playoff whisperer.
And you like what in this game?
I took the under.
It's what, 45 something?
45 and a half.
What was I, 3-1?
You're 2-2.
I was 2-2.
We were both 2-2, my friend.
Alabama screwed me, and what was the other one that screwed me? It doesn't matter.
I'm trying to think. It would have been, I know mine. I had Boise State covering.
Landrum, you lost the Texas game.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
The over. Thank you, Scatterboot, overtime.
So Molly right now, she is at a 43-36 clip for the year.
Yeah, Molly's torching Landrum and I.
Yeah,
well, more so me than Landrum.
Wait a minute. You're in last place.
I said more so me than you.
Landrum is trying to get above 500. He needs Notre Dame win to get to 500 on the season.
Landrum is more concerned with the office football pool.
9-0?
Oh, now she's bragging.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just
there
saw
it is.
Okay.
Like 60 seconds left in the show.
Yeah.
I'm just excited.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Win a damn bowl game and it goes to your
head. We have somebody else texting in. They say, I like the under in the Sugar Bowl. What about y'all? Yep, Molly likes the under. Landrum liked the under in Notre Dame. And then Pat and I both like Georgia to win. Let's see. Drake texted in, do you think Ryan Williams is going to hit the portal when it reopens in the spring or I guess in the next couple of days? No,
Yes.
I do not.
Yes.
I do not.
No, I don't.
Let's see. Steve texted in, Caden Proctor is an issue on the offensive line for Alabama. He certainly had better moments. Let's see. Brian says, if Jalen Milroe throws his name into the portal, does it get intercepted? That's a good one.
Ooh.
Let's see. And then we'll wrap up with this one. Somebody texted in and they asked, would Ryan Grubb have made a difference for Jalen Milroe if he was the OC? I think, yes, he was one of, if not the best offensive coordinators in college football. And as Landrum brought up earlier, the Seahawks are doing quite well offensively with him there. And Nick Sheridan had never been an OC before. So, yes, I think Ryan Grubb, you would have seen a more successful Jalen Milroe.
You hired the wrong guy, Greg Byrne.
Well, will the SEC get two teams in the college football playoff Final Four? Is it going to be